You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
Good evening. We'll call this meeting of the Brantford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, February 20th, 2020. I'll introduce members of our commission and staff. To my far right, we have Commission Member John Luss. Next to John, Commission Member Joe Chadwick. Next to Joe, Commission Member Joe Viuzzo. Turning the corner, we have Commission Member Fred Russo. To my left, Commission Member Marcy Pelusi. Our staff this evening is our Town Planner Harry Smith and our Clerk Recording Secretary in the corner, Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders, Chair, and I will ask our Secretary to read the notices of public hearing.
The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Brantford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of a public hearing to be held on Thursday, February 20th at 7 p.m. at the Brantford Fire Headquarters, 45 North Main Street, Brantford, Connecticut, to consider the following. 1. Application number 19-12.1, special exception for a laboratory office located at 779 to 803 East Main Street and Sycamore Way, A. Secondino & Son, Inc., care of Alfred Secondino, applicant and owner. Item number 2, application number 19-12.12, special exception and CAM for an access drive for a dock and driveway located at 27 Ferry Lane. Roger M. Boisenot, applicant. Terry L. Boisenot, Noit, owner. Hopefully I said that right. Item number 3, application number 20-1.9, special exception for incentive housing overlay district apartments located at 14, 21, and 22 Summit Place, SP Development LLC, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard and written communications will be received. A copy of the application is on file in the Planning and Zoning Commissioner's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street.
Thank you, Marcy. We'll follow our normal format for public hearings. The applicant will go first, make his presentation, including any comments from experts or engineers and so forth. After that, we turn it over to commission and staff. Staff will summarize the staff report. We'll open up to questions from the commission. After that, we'll open it up to the public. We ask that you come forward, grab a microphone, or either at the podium or one of those microphones. We ask that you stay sort of on that side of the room so the camera can pick everything up. And state your name for the record, make your comments. And after the public portion, we'll allow the applicant to respond to any of the public comments. We may or may not continue the public hearing or close the public hearing, depending on how it goes. Okay, and just if you're here for Summit Place, which is on our agenda as the number 6 on the public hearing, our plan is to open that and continue that to our March 6th meeting. So if you're here on that, my recommendation is come back on March 6th so you can actually hear the presentation and make your comments at that time. I think there's still a few things that are going on with that one. So just to let you guys know if you were here on that one. With that, we will proceed with our public hearing items. The first item number 1 is JK Partners, applicant and owner, 470, 478 East Main Street, the Brantford Motel location. Applicant ready to proceed?
Yes, good evening. For the record, James Perito from Halloran Sage, attorneys representing JK Partners, the owner, which is the subject property is 470-478 East Main Street. With me is Mr. KJ Patel, the owner's representative. His family's owned this hospitality site for decades. Also with me is George Johansson of Allied Engineering Associates, Inc., which is the engineering firm on this project. We're here seeking a site plan and special exception approval to permit the entire renovation of the existing Brantford Motel to allow the construction of a new Hampton Inn hotel that is more conforming and compliant with the zoning regulations. The specific special exception is to allow a restaurant use in one of the proposed buildings under zoning reg table of uses 4.8E. And there's a couple housekeeping matters I handed to the town planner a supplement to the application and hearing memorandum, which sort of lays out the historical uses and the various variances that we had acquired to permit the uses that are both there now and proposed. I submitted the notice of the decision of the ZBA for the variances, the minutes from your September 5th, 2019 meeting, your September 19th, 2019 minute meetings, as well as my letter to you on August 29th, which I'll get to in a second. As I said, the clerk has copies of those. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the uses on the site, and then George will come up and talk about the plans. So the site currently contains 6 separate buildings, all of which are either pre-existing or were developed pursuant to variances or under different zoning regulations. As far as my research indicated, this motel was developed even before the enactment of the 1973 zoning regulations that have since been changed several times in town. The ZBA granted variances over time to allow for the expansion and addition of more buildings back in the early 1980s. The current uses on site consist of 3 motel buildings with a total of 97 rooms, 2 laundries. The site has 3 apartments, 1 for the manager and 2 for other employees that were on site, as well as rented offices and the former sandwich shop and the motel check-in office. The current zone, IG2, does not allow hotels or apartments as of right, but does permit retail uses, offices, and restaurants by special permit. Nonetheless, the hotel and apartments are legal pre-existing non-conforming uses, and we've obtained the needed variance to allow for the expansion to 100 rooms and some dimensional items like the floor area and the height. The applicant plans on demolishing all 6 of the existing buildings. It's in a phasing plan. The majority of them would be taken down, and George will go over this, but a couple of the buildings will be left during the main construction and then taken down as well. That will allow the construction of a new Hampton Inn, which will be a 4-story, 100-room modern hotel. We'll have a small dining room and food preparation area for guests and meals, a pool, an exercise room, and meeting rooms. In addition, our plan has a 1-story, 3,000-square-foot building, which is proposed for a standalone restaurant. And at this point, we don't have a specific named restaurant for that, so it's our understanding that when we do, we would have to come back for a modification of, if you grant the special exception, to show the architectural details of whatever that restaurant may be. The development will greatly enhance this site. It'll improve the localized area. It'll be an added upscale hotel to the town, bring increased tax revenue and employment possibilities. So in late summer of 2019, we filed an application for variances to the ZBA, asking for variances for the height to permit the proposed building, floor area, because we went from 0.56 or 0.4 is required, and to allow the expansion and actually the modification of the uses from 97 rooms to 100, which is actually counting the 3 apartment uses, which are sort of rolled into the hotel count. They heard the application and they granted the various regulations. But before that happened, we had sent a letter to you in August because there was a question about whether you counted in the height calculations the parapets. You took a look at that in your minutes and you agreed that certain aspects of the parapet are not counted in the height regulations. That was the first question. And then also during the zoning hearing, there was a question as to whether or not you count from the elevation, the pre-existing elevation that was there prior to any development, or you count the elevation at the current site and then the proposed site. And that was also clarified, and you said you counted from the current elevation. So with that, we finished up in front of the ZBA, and all that information is with you in the file. With that, I'd like to have George come up to go over the details of the plan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Johannesson from Allied Engineering Associates in North Canaan, Connecticut. I'm here tonight representing JK Partners and their application to build a new hotel and restaurant building on the site at 478 East Main Street. I assume everybody knows where the property is. This is the survey that we got showing the buildings in relationship to the property line. This is showing all the existing features to be removed. Jim spelled out what each of the buildings' uses are, but I thought it was kind of interesting because although motels and hotels are not allowed in the IG2 zone, In our research for the history of the property, we found that the DOT maps from 1959 and 1960 show cabins on this property, so it's been used as a motel site for a very long time. So the existing site is served by public sewer, water, gas, and electric, all coming into the site off of East Main Street across the front in various locations. There's an existing stormwater system. It's a series of catch basins that wrap around the property. There's one string that comes around this side, and then another string that comes around this side. They all end up in this catch basin in the back, which then goes on to the Queech Corporation property. It's a reinforced concrete pipe, goes underneath the building. Behind the building, there's a catch basin in their yard, and then it goes out of that catch basin into a small brook in the back there. Researching the history of the site, there's not been any flooding of that area in the back that would indicate that that pipe is undersized. There were a few problems in the catch basin behind the office, but that was cleaned out, and they've never had problems with that since either. The existing site has several nonconformities from the zoning regulations, including the front yard setback, side yard setback, impervious surface area, and front yard parking setback. Also, many of the parking spaces don't meet the requirements of the zoning regulations. So the proposed development will consist of a brand-new, beautiful 100-room Hampton Inn and a 3,000-square-foot restaurant building. As Jim explained, there's no tenant determined for the restaurant. Because we don't have approval yet, we can't market the property to potential tenants. The hotel will have a nice lobby area with a breakfast room and sitting area. There will be an exercise room and an indoor pool. This hotel will be required to meet the standards of the Hilton Hotel Corporation, which is the parent company of Hampton. It will also be tied into an internet-based reservation system, which will help ensure the success of the business as well. So the proposed layout has all the parking spaces required by the regulations for the uses and has been designed taking into consideration all the vehicles that will have to travel through the site on a regular or irregular basis. The site can accommodate a tractor-trailer truck, school bus, fire truck, or any delivery truck that may come onto the site. The proposed site will be serviced by new public sewer, water, gas, and electric services, again off of East Main Street. The entire building will be sprinklered and meeting the most current regulations with the latest technology in fire suppression. The proposed stormwater system will also be a series of catch basins. All running around the sides again to that same catch basin in the back. However, we're installing an underground groundwater recharge system that has the capacity to hold about 9,400 gallons of water to recharge into the groundwater. It's clean water off of the roof of the building. Based on the drainage calculations, we're actually providing a 25% reduction in the rate of runoff to the property. The catch basins will all have a hood installed over the outlet pipe, and also have a sump underneath the outlet pipe. The hood is designed to prevent floatable, like papers and things like that, and any oil on the top to get out of the pipe because it goes down lower. So it prevents some of that, and the sump is designed so that when the water does come into the catch basin, if there's any sediment in it, it settles down and collects in the bottom. It's a 2-foot sump below the bottom of the pipe going out. So they're just ways to increase the quality of the water as it does go off the site. The proposed impervious area matches the existing impervious area. This is over the regulated allowed area. However, with the introduction of the infiltration system and the new stormwater drainage system, again, we're reducing the rate of runoff from the site. As Jim explained, we've received a variance from Zoning Board of Appeals to allow an increase in the height of the building over what is allowed by the regulations. We have shown proposed signage areas. So these are the elevations of the proposed hotel. This is the front. This is the east elevation, which is on the right as you're looking at the site. And this is the west elevation when you're looking at it from the site. It's on the left side. So you'll notice there's a Hampton Inn sign here, Hampton Inn sign here, and a Hampton Inn sign on the front. Based on the regulations, how they describe sign area, I've tabulated all that in the general notes on the site plan, showing what we're proposing, what's allowed, what's existing. And we're also showing 2 signs on the restaurant building. These are just generic drawings to show a basic size of the building. And then there would be a sign on the front and a sign on the side. And all of those meet the requirements of your regulations. We work with Artemis Landscape Architects to come up with a landscape plan. We're providing vegetation and trees that will work well in the location, as well as provide a variety of colors and textures with the plantings to enhance the aesthetics and the health of the site. Artemis actually received an honor award for 2020 from the Connecticut chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects, along with several other awards and honors ranging back over the years. We've worked with Lighting Affiliates Limited to create the photometric plan, which is now a supplement. It's just showing the foot candle levels on the ground. Inadvertently, the plans that we submitted were a scanned image, and those numbers didn't appear because I had made them light, but we have them now. And again, Lighting Affiliates is formed in 1990, has been providing lighting services all over Connecticut and Massachusetts since then. So both of the consultants we've used have a lot of experience in this type of thing. So the demolition and construction of the site is going to be phased. So we're going to allow part of these buildings over here to remain in use during the construction of the hotel. Okay? So the initial demolition will most likely start in the back, with 2 stories over here. Once that's removed, we'll move forward. This office building here would be removed. The existing driveways are going to remain during construction. This office house is going to remain as much as possible during construction to be used as construction offices. We may have to remove the section in the back here to allow access, and we're putting a stockpile area behind there as well. Once that's done, we'll move over to this side. The existing subway building right here will be removed, and then the end of this building is going to be removed. We're removing 6 rooms off the end, and then the end will be closed up so that that can still maintain use during the construction of the hotel. So that will be a 3-on-1 slope from there down to the construction area, so they can pour the foundation and get things going, because it's going to take a long time to construct that building, and this allows use of part of the property during the construction phase. As I said, the driveways will remain throughout the process, and then these buildings on the end that we're leaving after the rest of the stuff is taken down, those are going to require temporary services for water, sewer, and electric until they're removed and the final utility installation is done for the entire site. Prior to any demolition, catch basins at the back of the property, here, and here, will all receive erosion control measures to prevent there's no sediment getting into them. When the buildings are taken down, obviously they're going to be taken away in dumpsters, but the remaining disturbed area after foundations are removed is going to be left 6 inches lower than the adjacent pavement, to create settling areas for any sediment that gets in there and prevent it from going out into the catch basins. Even though they have erosion control measures, it works better to keep that area low so that whatever water does get in there just stays in there and settles out. And again, we're showing the stockpile area behind here for whatever needs to be stockpiled. We've graded this site. The proposed grading is very similar to the grade that's there now, trying to eliminate a lot of earthwork that's unnecessary, and it fits with the design of the building and the owner's desires to how the building is going to be used. So there's not a whole lot of excavation going on. However, those stockpiles, if there's one or several, those will have either silt fence or hay bales installed around the lower side, depending on what works better. If it's on pavement, a lot of times hay bales work better. If it's in a dirt area, we'll put silt fence in. And the other reason we graded this the way we did is when we matched the grade at the property lines, we wanted to remain as close to what exists now so it doesn't change any drainage patterns or anything like that. And then as the project progresses, all disturbed areas, once we start backfilling and putting topsoil in areas, those areas will all receive erosion control measures at the downhill side of all the disturbed areas to trap sediment as close to its source as possible, or as feasible. So I showed you the elevations of the building. We have details on the landscaping plant list here. We've got notes about the erosion control. We put a sequential erosion control, which is basically what I just explained to you. But it's on the plan so that the contractor knows what the intent is, as well as details and notes to make sure everything is installed properly, maintained properly during construction, and then removed at the correct time as opposed to just randomly. You know, because a lot of times on a job, the silt fences fall over and nothing gets maintained. But our notes cover that and make sure that that doesn't happen. We provided floor plans of the building. So this is the canopy in front. There is the pool in back with the canopy in front. You come in, there's a lobby area, a breakfast area, and a sitting area. You can go through the pool, you can go to the check-in desk, and then it's just like a standard hotel. There's a meeting room on the first floor. And then the rest of the floors are pretty typical. These are what the elevations will look like. And again, we're showing a placeholder for the commercial building, the restaurant building, because we don't know what it's going to look like at this point, but we know how big it's going to be. So that's why we put those elevations in the plan set. So we believe we've come up with a design that will provide a new state-of-the-art hotel with an adjacent restaurant for the hotel customers and the general public. We did receive comments from staff. We've addressed those comments, and staff seems satisfied with our response. There's a couple of things that they would like to offer as a condition if you chose to approve the project. We did put a traffic analysis on the plans rather than submit a separate report. It's almost identical number of trips per day based on the existing uses comparing to the proposed. It's actually a little bit of a decrease, but we're calling it even, but it's not going to affect the intersection or the level of service that's out there now. So new construction will be significantly more conforming to the zoning regulations of the town. It will be a significant upgrade to the property in the adjacent area. We'll be providing new sidewalks across the front of the property, which will tie into the existing accessible ramps that the DOT put in. Although the DOT ramps both steer straight into telephone poles. So we're going to be we're running our sidewalk here, we'll be tying down into these and here. And there were some other comments that Harry had regarding what the DOT may want us to do, which we're more than willing to work out with the DOT. We're providing a new up-to-date storm drainage system, vastly improved over what exists now, which also allows for significant groundwater recharge with clean roof water. All the utilities will be new and up-to-date, and we are providing carefully thought-out landscaping plan with a lighting plan with full cutoff light fixtures, which meet the requirements of the Dark Sky Initiative. Oh,
For you to speak in the mic.
okay. The lighting will be full cutoff fixtures, which meets the requirements of the Dark Sky Initiative. And we're basically just upgrading everything. It's going to be a brand-new site, nice landscaping, nice building, nice lighting. And we would ask that you would approve the application as submitted.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Perino?
Thank you, George. No, unless there's questions from the commission, probably best directed to George if they're technical. I think that, as he mentioned, the staff report had some comments which we continued the hearing. I think we had addressed all those comments, and the staff report was recommending approval with a couple conditions, which we're fine with. I think our submissions lay out how it meets all of the special exception requirements, and the staff report does the same thing. So unless you have specific questions, we're finished up.
How long would the construction process take? What would you anticipate?
I would say at least a year. Right?
Is there, if it were to be approved, would you commence it soon, or, yeah?
Well, it takes a while to design a building like this. You know, the owners are working, trying to find an architect that will take the project on in a short period of time. Anticipating, you know, as fast as possible, I would guess you're looking at least 3 months of design time, if not more. But, you know, we're not going to hire an architect to design the whole building until we have an approved building to design.
Understood. Questions from commission members?
Relating to traffic, when you came up with your level of service, did you include the restaurant?
Yes.
You did?
Yep. Yeah. What I did was I took the Institute of Traffic Engineers trips per day numbers for the existing uses, and then here it is right here. So we have the existing house and check-in office, the existing office building, the existing fast food restaurant, no drive-through, which is basically a Subway sandwich shop. And then the proposed is the hotel and the proposed restaurant. And the proposed is actually about 2 trips per day less than what the existing has.
Can you tell me what your height variance was?
A 45.1 to the top of the roof and a 5-foot parapet above that, I believe.
I think it was, the parapet can't be more than 10, it would be 55.01, which is like, there's like a decorative tower that comes up. But the roof, the deck of the roof is the 45.01, so that's 5 feet 01 above what the regulations permit. And then the parapet sort of varies in size. It goes from like 2 feet up to about 5.5, and then there's at one point there's like a sort of a decorative feature on the top that comes up a little higher than that. But the roof deck is 45.01.
As far as the type of construction, you haven't determined that yet? Whether it's going to be a stick-built building?
More than likely, the lobby area and the first floor will have a steel frame, but then the remainder of it may be stick-built. But again, that's going to be up to the architect to determine that.
I have a question about the drainage. You had talked about a 25% reduction in the infiltration. That's water coming from the roof that's going to infiltrate? And the
Yes.
reduction, because it's essentially the same surface area, is because of the time of concentration in the pipes?
Yes.
And less water going into the pipes because that roof water's out of the way? Is that, okay, just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually almost 27% for each basin.
Yeah, I just logically needed, because if it's the same amount of parking.
Right,
I need to understand where.
But yeah, no, the
the numbers are.
infiltration takes a lot of water out from going there and infiltrates it into the ground.
But it's not going to be recirculated for gray water for laundry or something? Okay.
No.
Harry, you want to review the staff report with us?
Sure. So as is mentioned in the the applicant's comments. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes before this has really ever come to the commission in terms of comments from planning and zoning departments, consulting planning firm, which we engaged for this project. You may recall they're giving us about 1 day a week of services, so that's been very helpful. So I do have a couple of questions to start out. One is, in terms of the phase construction, I believe back in the beginning of the process, we might have mentioned the desirability of going to the building official and the fire marshal to make sure that they are comfortable with how you're phasing the demolition and construction, because we've had some questions and back and forth about other projects with that kind of scenario and development framework. So they have seen this, and I mean, if there's final tweaks, that should be fine, but I just want to make sure that, there's a major issue they have with this.
We had to be put requirements like that.
Okay. So I'm not sure they really should look at this, is what you're saying? They really haven't looked at this? They haven't, okay. And just while that's been done, have you done an analysis of the amount of parking that would be available during each
Yes.
phase? Okay.
That's
'Cause I know
on
we
the
talked about
phasing
that.
plan. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Maybe George could use a microphone, just grab one of the portable mics.
Hear me? Good.
More for the TV.
So, these existing features are to remain during phase 1 of demolition. So there's parking spaces in the back here. This is the building in the front. This is the shortened building that remains. And there's also spaces here, but at the bottom here, I've done a description of that. So phase 1 demolition parking calculations. 28 rooms in one building plus 16 rooms in the other building equals 44 rooms times 1.2 spaces per room. So we have 52.8 spaces required, and we're providing 54 spaces.
Okay, great. Just to talk about the restaurant building for a minute, I mean, there is a placeholder design, so the commission, as it's done on other projects, for example, 250 North Main Street, could include a condition saying that no building permit or zoning authorization for building permit or a zoning permit would be issued for the second building, the potential restaurant, until that building's design comes back before the commission for a separate approval. So that's something we've done before, so it could be a way to handle that. Most of the other comments I have are somewhat detailed. They're just sort of the loose ends from the plan revisions, so I can just quickly go over some of those. There's an area for refuse recyclables, I think, behind the proposed restaurant. So we really would need a detail for, I would imagine it's going to be a walled enclosure of some kind,
Yes,
masonry,
That would be part of the building.
and it should have gates in front of it, and
Yes.
so we just need details on that.
There's also a little hotel storage area there as well. One of the-
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
One of the comments was we had catch basins in there in each of the areas because that's a Hampton standard.
Right.
But based on
And the town engineer did not want those, yeah.
Right, so we removed those.
Great. We would also need a note on the plans, and I know it's a very extensive set of notation about erosion and sediment control and so forth, but we'll need a note basically saying that the contractor would be responsible for complying with Section 6.8, which is a section of the zoning regulations on grading and earth removal activities.
We'll
So-
add that.
Okay. Part of that also is doing a topsoil replacement to a depth of 4 inches. That's in that regulation also. There is a statement on the plans that there are no significant trees, and you may not be aware that there's a definition in the zoning regulations that any tree 12 inches or greater in diameter is by definition a significant tree, in quotes. You probably took it as just a descriptive word, but it actually has a definition in the zoning reg, so.
Well, all the trees are labeled on the removal plan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we just need to add a note on, I think, removal plan that each individual tree to be removed would take care of it.
okay.
And then there's a couple remaining comments from the town engineer. One is about the outfall, I think you talked about. He just wants an evaluation of the size, material, and condition of the existing outfall, and results of that analysis reported to him, and consideration, so he can consider whether any needed maintenance or other improvements that need to be done. Also, as was mentioned, there is a bus stop in the frontage of the property here, and the town engineer is recommending there be the addition of a landing area, if you will, for the drop-down lift from the bus, so that someone who's wheelchair mobile could get off the bus, get on a piece of pavement right at the edge of pavement of Route 1, and traverse a sidewalk connection under the sidewalk system on either side of the property, as well as into this property, main entrance. And I believe we received something actually coincidentally today regarding a sidewalk being put in front of the Brandfont Honda parking area further down on West Main Street, and the state itself is requiring this along that frontage because there's an existing bus stop there as well. So this would be needed in any event. And there's a standard, you're probably aware of the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines that dictate the details of the construction. So that takes us down to in front of the main driveway, or main drive, that's a signalized intersection. There already are, on either corner of the intersection, pedestrian actuators. One is actually frozen. I went out and took a look. And one actuator, the actual button, is cracked. However, the ones that do work, there's a full pedestrian phase in this signal, and they stop all the traffic in all four directions. So I think there's one crosswalk on the west side of the intersection,
right
Route
here.
1. There should be one across the main driveway connecting the two sidewalk segments, so we'll need to add that. And then there really should be one, I think, on the east side, because that's where the main walkway from the main entrance comes out to the sidewalk. There's a connection down to the accessible drop-down ramp and the warning strips and so forth.
Okay.
So that would certainly need review by the DOT, but I think that would be an appropriate thing to have in place at this point. I can certainly see folks crossing right at that spot if they want to go to the brewery and they stay overnight. I mean, the brewery's pretty close there and reasonably accessible, so that would make that.
Yeah, we don't have a problem working with the DOT on those issues.
Okay, great. Let's see, lighting is, we just did actually get the final printout that was legible today, so we really haven't had time to go through that. So we could include, if the commission, the next meeting or even tonight, wanted to approve this, standard condition that staff will review the lighting proposal and make sure it met all the regulations.
There's no problem making adjustments.
Okay. One thing you may want to consider is, well, actually, I put it in the proposed finding here, or condition, is the commission's been requiring a correlated color temperature for the LEDs
That's fine.
of that kind of warmer light, 3,000 or less
I
degrees
agree.
Kelvin. So it also need the full-size cut sheets, because I couldn't really see them on the plan because they're a
Okay,
little shrunk.
that's fine.
And I did have a chance to take the landscaping plan over to the town tree warden, who we are fortunate to have on staff, and he had a couple of suggestions. He did have one thing I think should be strongly considered, is the line of London plane trees in front. I mean, he thought that was an excellent selection, but said at maturity, their crown will be about 30 feet in width, and they're planted a little, or proposed a little close together for that situation. So if you wanted to thin them out a little bit, space them out more, that would probably be advisable for their mature
That's
growth.
fine.
Also, I think,
There were
Oh.
some other substitutions too.
yeah, there's some suggested substitutions of honey locust for hawthorn and the pear trees, which the town has struggled with on our main.
Well, this
Street,
this
downtown.
cultivar of pear tree is much stronger than the Bradford pear. It has a stronger branching structure. That's why it was selected. But
That's fine, but this is just considerations. Also, in back, the oaks have been problematic in the past with acorn litter and so forth,
yeah,
so.
we have no problem making those changes though.
And I'm suggesting commission consider a low hedge along the front, in front of the end of the parking lot, just to screen headlight glare from folks driving along Route 1, because there's cars pulling in and out, could be distracting, it's just a suggestion. I think that is it.
Thank you. Any questions from commission members before we open up the public? Now, does any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
Barry Maresca, Chairman of Economic Development. One of the most common requests from Brantford businesses dealing with customers, suppliers, corporations, or parent companies located outside of town is the need for decent, updated hotel space in town. The demand far exceeds the supply. As talk of a Hampton Inn replacing the existing hotel on the east end of town commenced, I have received only positive comments and much enthusiasm from businesses and townspeople alike. The proximity of this hotel to companies such as Tangent Bioscience, Cintas Uniforms, Semaphore, Isoplexix, Azitra, who is going to be moving into town and has come up with an alliance with Bear. This is not only desired by these companies, and such as these companies that call Brantford home, it is also needed to keep these companies calling Brantford their home. So I strongly recommend we go through with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Seeing none, does the applicant have any further comments? Harry, is there any reason we can't close this?
I see no reason, really, no.
Okay, so I think we can close this matter as a public hearing, and we can talk later. I don't know if we're in a position to vote on this yet, but we'll bring it up and see where we are. Thank you. That brings us to item number 2 of our public hearings. It's a continued public hearing, Dave Diatri, 4-3 Elms Road, special exception grading for a new septic system. I believe there was a presentation last time, and there were a few details maybe about landscaping and I think some grading issues. So
good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant, David Diatri. I don't want to plow the same field that you did last month. I did receive a letter from Harry. It's dated February 23rd. We received it on the 19th. So.
And today's the 20th.
Oh, absolutely. So I do have.
That's an error on my part.
Okay. I do have revised plans based on those comments that no one has seen yet. So tonight, you have to share them. So you guys can share. Yes, sir. Okay, just briefly, what triggered this whole application was, the history was David had brought in some fill. He got an after-the-fact permit. This commission approved that permit based on some septic issues. David wanted to redo the septic system. So blue is Squaw Brook. This red here is the existing septic system. It's about 20 feet from the brook itself, and it's sitting in the groundwater. We actually reverse engineered with the health department, so it's sitting in the groundwater right now. So we want to move it, get as far away, make it a code-compliant septic system. We have the approvals. I did listen to the tape today, and and gleaned from your last meeting, there were a couple of elements that were important. One was the dumpster, which we moved. That's over here next to the building. We moved it as far as possible. There's also a closure detail that we added to the plan. The other thing was the reason the building is being renovated. This pink line is actually the FEMA flood line, so it hits part of the building. So once any part of the structure touches the building, the entire structure is considered in the flood zone. So he is making it as FEMA compliant as possible, concrete floors, moving the mechanicals above the base flood elevation, and putting in flood vents also. And there's no habitable space within the flood zone area.
He doesn't have to lift the building.
No, it's strictly flood vents. In A zone, you can use flood, if it's a V zone, to make it compliant, you have to raise it up. So the lowest horizontal structural member has to be a foot, at least a foot above the BFE. The other there's some landscaping information that John Cunningham will go over. Let's see. And we did incorporate in the notes, I'm going to jump to Harry's letter, specifically starting at item number 5. It says prior to issuance of a zoning permit or zoning authorization of the building. So alpha is show a detailed dumpster enclosure, including the gate, which we did. A note on the site plan shall be included indicating the contractor shall be responsible for conducting all grading and earth removal activities in compliance with 6.8 of the zoning regulations. On the plan, on the top here, under general notes, we've quoted that specifically, that note of 6.8, of the zoning regs. It relates to the topsoil, when it's going to get done. The suitable topsoil, that's part of that note also. A complete erosion and sedimentation control plan addressing all requirements of 6.8 and 6.1. Instead of going on, we had enough room on this sheet to incorporate all those. There's actually a project narrative, S&E, control scheduling, maintenance, contingency plan, who to contact. All that information is now on this plan. We also have, in regards to the trees, we're showing the trees that are to be removed in excess of 12 inches. Most of the, what are those? Oh, the Norway maples, I guess those are getting removed, and we will be replacing those. There was some talk about the drainage, addressing the drainage along the road here. Now, I was out there today. I didn't, there's a thin part of the wall and a thick part of the wall. This thinner section in here, I really didn't, there's no evidence of scouring in here. The only scouring I noticed was right in this corner where we're proposing a swale. So if we did do any drainage work, it would really just be like river rock, just to mitigate the flow here. And actually, we don't want to concentrate any flows by doing any curbing because you'd rather have sheet flow. I did notice there's one basin in front of the post office that dumps directly into the sound. So we would want to avoid any direct non-point source pollution from there. The road, 3 Elm Road, is almost super elevated. It's flat and it almost looks super elevated. But like I said, it looks steep, but I didn't notice any scouring at all. So I don't see it. I don't want to create a problem when there's not a problem to address here. And I think that was it. E was town plan, landscaping plan. John can address that. And the erosion and sediment control plan, we have that. And then G is off the table right now in regards to his comments. We're not planning on doing anything. We may put some, like I said, some decorative river rock in that area, just to act as a leak off. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to present at this time?
No, I'll wait for questions.
Okay, great, thanks. Any questions at this point from the app? Harry, do you want to review your additional
Were there additional
proposals?
landscaping?
Right, I was just going to mention, if, I thought you made a reference to Mr. Cunningham presenting any changes to his plan.
Great.
Sometimes.
Show the trees if we can, right, so we can see the plants. Thanks.
Grab one, John. Excuse me. Can't afford to file.
You don't need a microphone, do you?
You probably
I'm going to give
should
it to you anyway.
Well, you need
Yeah.
it for the TV.
for the TV business.
Good evening. Once again, my name is John Cunningham. I'm with TEC Landscape Design, located at 62 Wall Street in Madison, Connecticut. If you were here last, or 2 weeks ago, I had just done a simple buffer on this back area by an existing dawn redwood and an existing elm tree, which we are planning on keeping. When we discussed it at the last meeting, we have now since expanded really the same planting. So it's a lot of the same material, but just greater numbers of it, okay? We've brought really the buffer material along this stone wall that the board had asked for, okay? The crushed stone would be removed, topsoil would be added. This is still going to sheet flow towards this buffer. Our first plant of filtration would be a low juniper. It's an evergreen material. I'm sure there's still going to be some snow removal down there. The juniper will take that. We've also stretched the parking area a little bit into the lawn area to try to give a little planting bed along the back of the post office. I suggested Aronia, which is a native plant material. It's tall and narrow. The planting bed's not going to be really wide, and it will start to soften the back of the post office. That, and I also used the sweet fern that I've used in the rest of the bed back up along the post office. Moving down towards the property line, once again, the 2 existing trees out back that are going to remain. On Tom Stevens' plan, we have marked, I believe it's 6 total, Norway maple. They're all in excess of 12-inch caliper, so they are listed on the plan, okay? We're suggesting 1 new tree. My client really likes hickory. I'm going to do the best I can to see if I can find hickory for him. If not, it will be black gum. We've stretched the planting line back up to a certain area to try to give both rear yards some privacy so they can get out and use the lawn area. Moving to the front of the building, there's going to be a transformer in the corner here that Chuck talked about. A lot of times with sheet flow, especially from a paved road, I usually like to suggest some type of larger river rock. I call them river jack. It's probably a 1 to 3 inch stone. It doesn't move when water moves through it, and it can slow down any type of erosion that might happen. I put some of it here in the corner. As Chuck mentioned, this is going to be really the swale that's going to lead back to the brook. So the river rock would really just be around the transformer. I introduced another piece of plant material from our last meeting, a variety of cherry laurel that I've started to use quite a bit. It's deer-proof. This is a spreading variety, okay? It's an evergreen. It will start to soften the transformer from the residences. I've also used it on the other side of the building to soften the parking from the road. So I remember, in your first application, I think cars want to be softened. So evergreen material here, so you might not see the cars back down in here, and the same with the transformer. I introduced one additional form of ground cover, Liriopes spicata. It's a low form of ground cover. I consider it really an evergreen, except for the time when the new growth comes out. I'm using that around the transformer and around the area where the stone wall is to try to get a little filter from the road onto the client's new lawn area, which will be installed. As Chuck said, I brought a photograph of another project. We are going to put an enclosed screen around our trash area. This seemed to be the best area for it, behind the house, where it wouldn't be seen from the road, okay? It's going to be built out of white cedar. It's either going to have a steel post or a wood post. It's going to probably be 6 feet tall. I'm just going to guess with a project like this, they're probably going to be roll-out units, and each unit will have their own trash receptacle. The area is big enough to accommodate all those.
Thank you. Anything else from the applicant at this time? Or?
Yeah, there was.
I have a question. So the hedge to the right of the transformer, did you say what that was?
This is existing arborvitae
Oh.
that is on the site. We plan on leaving, and
Okay.
there's also an existing wood timber retaining wall. We're planning on leaving those both there.
And then the swale, you're just seeing that as an open grass swale beyond that by the,
Yes, correct. If you just
Everything.
follow my finger down,
Okay.
this grade is going to come this way and down towards the brook, and I'm going to guess it's going to lead back down to the marsh that's down here, okay? Anything else? I'm going to put Chuck back on.
There was one other major comment from the meeting, which I skipped, that was changing this proposed grading from 2-on-1 to 3-on-1. So I did bump that out, and now it's 3-on-1.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are you done for now?
I think so.
Okay, great. Harry, comments?
Sure. Okay, just in terms of process, there's proposed findings, conditions in front of you, the memo that's erroneously dated the 23rd. Should be the 20th, or the 19th, actually. So the findings, just this three. One is basically 1 and 2 is standard items. One is finding of consistency with the special exception criteria. Number 2 would be the coastal area management site plan finding. Number 3 has to do with the request that some of the otherwise applicable requirements of the landscaping section of the zoning regulations be waived, and then getting into proposed conditions. So I think I'd prefer to go through these if that's okay, and hopefully that will pick up all the comments that have been brought up and anything that's really outstanding at this point, and things that have already been discussed that have been changed already in the modified plans. Condition 1 is just a boilerplate saying the work shall follow substantially the plans that have been submitted and approved, except where they may be modified as laid out in the zoning regulations, which would be either a minor change by me or a major change by the commission. Number 2, it's just a requirement that we get a full set of plans back if there are any revisions, which we're already receiving tonight. Number 3 is a standard condition about sanitation and erosion control measures being in place before any start of construction, that being reviewed by the zoning enforcement officer. Number 4 is a standard lighting condition. I think at this point there really aren't much in the way of, I don't know if you finalize lights, so this would just allow staff to approve any lights you propose once you get to that point. And number 5 is a number of items that would need to be modified on the plan, some of which have already been discussed. I would suggest keeping most of these in here, just even though they're on the revised plans, just since we're just getting these tonight. You can take a look at them, just check them off, wouldn't be an issue. So 5A is about the detail for the dumpster enclosure, including a gate. The cedar and the post, that's all fine, so we just need a detail for the gate, which it's on there already. Great, take a look at that. Section 5B, you've already talked about with a note about Section 8 compliance, 6.8 compliance. Item C, the topsoil. D, complete erosion sedimentation control plan, take a look at. Item E, several potential changes to the landscaping plan. And maybe I'll just go up and go to the plan for a minute. So, is that another sheet here? Sheets up. Thank you. Just a couple of minor points. There is some kind of planting here. I don't know if it's really needed. If the commission feels it's needed, it's interior. I just put a request that be added, any kind of element you might want back. Again, if the applicant doesn't decide to do this. My eye again? Okay. It's really not essential. It doesn't affect adjoining properties. There's a gap in typically a whole complete line of landscaping alongside property line is required in the regulations. There's already a request to modify the landscaping requirements. I don't know if that's really completely necessary. I understand there's going to be a split rail fence here, and that would be the neighboring property owner's house. So I would imagine you don't want anything significant there, so they want to get some view out of their windows that I believe are there. So they will have a tree that will screen as it grows up, provide some softening and buffering. So I think that would be, in my mind, an optional element, but I just wanted to bring it up. I'm unclear because I think during the other sections of the public hearing, there was discussion about possibly removing 2 of these parking spaces since they aren't technically required any longer, since you're going down from 7 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms. So I don't know if that's still the desire. Right now, there's, I think, the full 13 on the plan, and that Is that the desire to keep all 13? I see a nod from one person.
I think that we could probably reduce it. What we thought is lay everything out, get nice, easy streets in and out of the parking places to see if we can eliminate them. I've got
Okay.
kids to live in one or two.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that the whole thing lays out very well.
Okay. We could,
If I can add to that, we would like to keep them as part of the approval. If we can reduce them, we will, but typically visitors, it's a very crowded area, it's very tight.
Oh, sure.
To get there, so.
we could handle that, and I'll suggest some language about, I'm just want to make sure if this parking lot shrunk up a little bit, then we widen out the vegetated buffer, because as much as you can get will be even more helpful. The only comment I had was, I appreciate this, but there is the back of the building, so that's, it helps this property in appearance and aesthetics. But if you included some more landscaping here, that would screen the headlight glare from, I know that's, sort of a boat storage area in the post office building, but over time, that might convert to something else, you never know, and I think screening is something that's definitely a requirement of the
I don't
regulations.
think the parking circulation works there. There's not enough physical room to put the space and the aisleway.
They might be able to squish it, I don't know if you could do something very,
Well,
Vertical?
The other problem is it's a lot of ledge, exposed ledge here.
Okay.
So we may not be able to, I'm not sure. So
yeah,
That's something John did look at. He put it on the- Yep.
okay. Even when it can be a small, short fencing element or something,
Is that an overhang?
I did swing this out from behind the post office.
yeah, I noticed
Your
that.
point was right. We don't have enough dimension here.
Yep.
We need a certain dimension for the cars to back out.
You need
So by-
20 or 18, are they 18?
They're 18.
Spaces
They're
are
18.
18
And
and
you really
10 by
need
18,
30,
and then-
35 feet. We're right against the building.
Under the regs, you need 24 feet behind them too, so you're just barely gonna make it.
And to have a planting bed that's 18 inches wide is not going to be there.
Okay. Bringing me down to, we'll need some additional measures about preservation of snipping of trees, so that's just part of the regulations. And I don't know whether we've already included this in the notes about using erosion control mats, so we are talking about tidal wetland here, so if it's seasonally inappropriate to seed and loam, once you're done.
Yeah, in regards to starting construction, I spoke to my client. He's planning on, I recommended to not do any work right now. It's stockpiling, there might be frost, you can't really deal with it. So
Right.
if he waited till late spring when things start to dry up, and we'll concentrate on the building right now. And then later on, once he can throw some seed down and stabilize this, then the septic can go.
Yeah, if you time it appropriately, you won't need to worry about that.
Correct,
So,
that's
yeah,
what,
right,
exactly.
right.
Exactly.
With respect to the existing height and the potential for water flowing off 3 Elms Road into the property, that was a concern, I think was brought up by one of the neighbors over here, Ms. Chesler. I did review the proposal that was on the plan with the town engineer. He did not really want a 10-inch pile of 1-inch stone in his right-of-way.
No, it's not on our plan.
Okay. So I'm suggesting that, that some kind of alternative be put together, maybe it's what was discussed tonight, as long as it's acceptable to the town engineer.
Yeah, I was gonna run that by him, we were just gonna put the river rock for the leak off, just to mitigate some of the velocity coming off there, and we're going through this, so.
Yeah. I mean, he can go out there, take a look, and you can both
Yeah.
collectively
I'll
figure
meet him
out where the
anytime.
water's
Yeah.
going, and
Yeah.
that would be the way to solve that. I am suggesting, due to the proximity to tidal wetlands, that the commission consider requiring monthly progress reports with respect to erosion and sedimentation controls and stability of the site. If really, in terms of what the contractor is doing out there, if it really is no issue, the zoning enforcement officer goes out there. I'll leave it to that person whether they can waive the requirement for the reports. If some kind of problem develops, they can require the report. So I really don't want to propose another, piece of paper creation for anyone. But if it would allow something in place should a problem develop, given all the concerns that have been raised by the neighbors. And the rest of the proposed conditions are basically boilerplate with signage, new replacement lighting, control of dust, continued maintenance of landscaping elements, requirement that any modification to the building or uses come back to the commission. And just the last one is a notation that the approval for the section 6.8 special exception, respect all the earth movement, only has a life of 1 year. If you needed longer time, you have to come in for an extension.
Thank you, Harry. Anything else? Does the applicant have any, I know there was some back and forth while Harry was reviewing the conditions, but did you have any particular other comments with respect to?
Harry covered everything.
Okay.
I did have actually one more wording suggestion. On 5D, there's a little typo after the word section, should be pluralized, made plural. And then on 5E, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line down, where it says verification with DEP of the appropriateness of the plantings in the vegetated buffer area adjoining the tidal wetlands and tidal watercourse. At the end of that, we could add, right after the word watercourse, which should be expanded to include the area of any parking spaces to be removed. So it doesn't mandate their removal, it just says if you do take parking spaces out, we could beef up the buffer, the vegetated buffer area.
And are we, your language for 5E would be also modified about closure of the gap in light of what we?
Yes, I think you could take that out.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll review
Yeah, we can
that
go over that, yeah.
when we get close to that. Okay, does the applicant have anything else? Any further comments in response to any of the staff comments? Okay. Any questions from commission members? Comments? Let's open up the public. Any member of the public wish to comment on this? One more time, any member of the public wish to comment? Seeing none, I think we can close this matter as a public hearing, and maybe this is something we can bring up later. So thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 3 of our public hearings on the agenda. This is Al Condino and Son, Bittersweet Partners, LLC, 779-803 East Main Street and 21 Sycamore Way. Special exception for a laboratory office. And I understand that the applicant's requested that we open and continue this matter because it's still before wetlands. Is that correct?
Correct. The next wetlands meeting will be, I believe, on the 12th, if I have that right, which is in advance of the March 19th meeting. So the date that's being discussed about continuing the hearing to is the 19th of March.
Okay. So then for item number 3, we're going to open that matter as a public hearing, but we will be continuing that to our March 19th meeting. So item number 3 is continued to our March 19th meeting at this same location at 7 o'clock. That brings us then to item number 4. I'm going to massacre the last name. 27 Ferry Lane, Roger and Terry Boisnall. And Mr. Prady, are you representing the applicants in this one?
Good evening, Jim Preddy, Cristolo Engineering here in Brantford. To try to orient you, if you look on the location map that's on the plan, this is kind of way out in the corner of the Boston Park area, right along the water. You have to come down Boston Road, down the end of Spring Road Road, and then onto Ferry Lane, which from this point on is a private road. There is a little bit of a misnomer in the application. The application says, and relocate an existing driveway. That part of it's off the table. We're really just here for the dock access. There's an existing driveway that goes to the Boysenholtz main house, which is at the end of the private road. There was some talk about moving the driveway around, and we're not looking for any of that at the moment. What they are looking for is access to this dock. There is a dock that historically has been here for many years. They have a permit through DEP to replace the dock. What they're trying to do is get access down to the dock with equipment to be able to reconstruct it. There's a number of existing stone walls here, some of it that were extended as part of the project next door. So there's a bit of a gravel area here, and then what we're looking for is, at this point, permission to basically chip and move rock to be able to get a machine down here. What they want to do is be able to take this, and I'll show you a picture, a photograph, take this fixed pier out, lift it out in one piece, build the new pier not on the water, and lift it back in place so they're not actually working over the water on the fixed pier.
These 1 foot or 2 foot contours?
So here is the, you can pass this around. This is the dock question. They've actually lifted a smaller machine down here to help clean up some of the rocks that can be moved, but what they need is a bigger machine to actually lift this out. Where we're talking about, the path we're talking about is on the plan right where your finger is,
Yep.
is this portion. Basically drilling and chipping some of this rock in front of the wall and pinning it to the other side that's low so that you can actually walk down here with a piece of equipment. The other part of this, so,
There are 2 foot
well,
contours.
back to the plan. So with that photograph that I just described basically is this area right in here. It'll be chipping some of the higher rock in front of the wall and pinning it to the lower area to be able to walk the machine down here. And at that point, you're just about at the same grade as the end of the dock. What this will also do is that in the future, once this is done, when they pull the kayaks in off up on the pier, they'd be able to wheel them up through the same path to get back up to the main level.
So this is just to enable the pier replacement?
Yes. But again, like I said, the work to get the machine down there will also provide them a way to wheel kayaks up and out after this is all done. But there really isn't any earthwork activity, it's just stonework, because there isn't, if you see on those pictures, there really isn't any earth
To move?
to move. The earth that's, there is some behind this wall that you can see on the photograph, there was some filling that happened behind this wall. At the end here, where the dirt does wrap around to bare rock, the ZEO at the time had gone out there and asked them to put hay bales around that area so nothing could kind of run around the corner and down the bank, and that's, they're in the hay bales are in the photographs, you can see.
So it's about 10 feet of vertical change from the dock to where you already have access. If I'm reading that right?
Yes.
And they just need to get another few feet into that flat spot?
Yeah, it's side to side,
For
it's
that
pitched
last-
too much to actually
Yeah, this
walk
last
down
this last bit right here, they're trying to even out.
there. Yeah, unfortunately, that, at the time we did the survey, there was even less access down there, and without
Yeah.
rappelling gear, I couldn't get the survey crew to take better shots along the rock, but
So.
Do the best you can.
I mean, looking at some old photographs, it appears that work's been done there on this property that's really not
Yes.
associated with the approval for the adjoining house.
Right, so some of these walls were actually permitted before the old house even came down over here, and then
Right.
this piece of this wall was extended from the old wall maybe 4 years ago or so.
Yeah, I couldn't find any record of any approval for any work on this property. So I think some of that might have been
Right, and I
done
think that
without
was one
any permitting or
right.
authorization.
One of the comments from the ZEO and also from your consultant was to acknowledge the fact that some of this had been already done and to include that in the permit.
Right.
So it's, just so I understand, so you're taking out where it says boulders, or you're taking out where it says sort of CF?
No, where we're sort of showing the best we can, the
That's the
contours going
proposed-
down.
that's-
That's the
Oh, that's
area.
what you're creating, that
Yeah, that's
that
what we're trying
slope.
to.
So it's proposed
right.
grade.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's the proposed grades, more or less.
Then once you get down to the end of the grade, Well, your changes you're proposing.
But you don't need to get
Yeah.
past the 14?
So-
You're okay?
No.
What happens then?
When the 14's here, and then there's a 12 that's already here, and a 10, so they could turn the corner with the machine at that point.
Yeah, that's
It's one of those
existing
things
to
you
remain.
have to stand out there and see it, but
Yeah.
it makes a little more sense. But
So what's that slope that you're proposing from 14 to 20? Is that like
this is
8%?
It's about 10%,
10%?
but with the machine or on foot, it's not really a problem.
Do you see, and those boulders, we've got the hatching, you see that's the area that's getting removed, or it's really just well, I guess it's,
I'm not sure where.
I'm just not, I guess I'm reading this as if these are already there, not paying
Those are
attention.
already,
That these are
already
here.
there.
These are here?
Those are proposed contour
Yeah,
lines,
I'm reading
and-
these as existing.
And that's
I'm-
existing.
But you're basically gonna have to get into here a little bit
Yes,
more.
right.
How much, what's the total quantity of rock being removed?
Good question. I don't, it's hard to answer because it's so irregular. The larger pieces of rock that will be chipped out will be basically flipped and pinned to the low areas. So, because you can't really fill with dirt there.
Is it all going to be remaining on site and unremoved? or-
It will get reused somewhere on site, yeah.
So by chipped out, we're talking about mechanical or chemical, or not blasting?
Not blasting,
Okay.
mechanical. Drills.
You never considered picking that thing up on a barge, a crane on a barge? I mean, Mike Bartlett, he's got a crane on a barge.
I don't
and all
know they
that.
have enough water to get in close enough for that.
Really?
At here, that's why there's a ramp and a float, it's gotta get out a little farther.
I mean, you're talking about the pier, right? The stationary pier?
the fixed
It's gonna be
pier, yes.
replaced? You know, that you couldn't lift, get close to it and lift it up and put a new one down? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a reason why you're not doing that, but
so they own the property here too, so they have the area to build the new dock here, and then they can just carry it down.
Anything else? Any questions from commission members or staff?
Just a couple items. We did ship this also out to our planning consulting firm, and they produced a report that I believe is passed out to you tonight. A couple items they brought up. One is the grades. They could really not make sense out of the proposed grades and how they tied into existing grades.
Right here.
Again, because it's rock, there will be some vertical faces that happen, you know what I mean, where they cut and fill. I think some of those comments refer to they're looking for sections and things. I think they're referring to the driveway that I mentioned that was not part of this. But it says it on
It
the
ties in.
application.
I just tied it in. Just
Yeah.
have to connect a few lines.
Okay. They also have a section about erosion sanitation controls. It really needs to be, and I appreciate what you're saying about rock removal, but it's not entirely clear. You're not talking about some work that has been done out there. So this is a pretty steep drop-off, I'd say maybe from the existing driveway at the top, maybe 20 feet down to the beach. Does that sound about right?
Correct.
That's it.
From this level down, there is actually boulder, like riprap on the slope here that armors the slope from any erosion. At the end where you wrap around and get onto the rock, that has been lined all around with hay bales, which can be seen in those photographs, which you can put into the file.
Yeah. So how that, I think we need a little more detail on how the site would be stabilized and how you protect against erosion during the work. And I appreciate the hay bales, but I don't think they're really on the plan either. So I think adding some of that detail would be certainly helpful. They did also note that it's potentially, we just discussed the unpermitted work of on the site that's occurred. So that should really be noted as, that you're actually coming in for retroactive approval for that as well. And probably looking at some kind of schedule for construction in terms of how fast this would happen, the sequencing, and
Well, they would be continuing with the work. They've stopped at this point. They would continue with the work since we have the permit. They want to get the dock in before the spring.
Okay. We did get a letter from the DEP, so we referred this up to them for comment, and just as they're requesting that I do, per state law, I need to read that into the record. This is dated January 6th. This is to the Planning and Zoning Commission, care of myself. This is, Dear Commissioners, thank you for referring this coastal site plan received December 23rd, 2019 for review and comment under the heading Project Description. The subject site has been approved for a dock. The property owners have been working on the upland to create an access path to the dock. Erosion and sediment controls will be in place and properly maintained before any soil is disturbed. No stones will be placed below mean high water. Coastal resources include shorelines, coastal flood hazard area, VE 15 and X, coastal waters, and rocky shorefront. In conclusion, we hope that these comments are helpful to the Commission pursuant to CJS Section 22A-110. We request these comments be read into the record at a public hearing for this application. If we can be of any further assistance to you in this or any other coastal management or Long Island Sound related matter, please feel free to contact me at 860-424-3138. Carol Szymanski, Environmental Analyst 2, Land and Water Resources Division, Bureau of Water Protection and Land Reuse, DEP. Maybe I should also mention that the site, if you go down there, I did go down over the weekend. There's another property that I believe is also owned by the Wassenolts, which
They
is
own both of these pieces,
Right.
the piece across the street and where the new house is.
right. So there's no work being proposed on, is it 23 Ferry Island?
This is 23, yeah.
That's 23. It's just on 27. So I believe there is some kind of walkway down on 23.
There is a
Big
footpath
footpath down.
that's been there for many years.
Right. So there's no work, as far as I understand, being proposed on that property at all.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Harry. Any other questions or comments from commission members and staff?
Are there any tidal wetlands involved?
There isn't any obvious tidal wetlands there. The vegetation that's out there is some pretty rough brush kind of stuff. There is the RWA actually has a valve here with a leak off that goes down, runs down the rock into the water. And I suspect that the fresh water being added there constantly may have something to do with that, but it just continuously runs.
Has there been vegetation taken down in the last couple of years? It seemed like the whole property been disturbed fairly significant degree.
Well, obviously up in here where this has all been done, that scrub has been removed, but
Right.
on this property, it's pretty much all still there.
But on 27, it's sort of been altered to some degree.
Only to where they've gotten to.
Right.
Below that, there's still scrub in here.
As you're getting down to the beach
Yeah.
or the water.
Right.
Sure. Okay.
Anything else? We'll open up the public. Members of the public wish to comment on this item? Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Schroeder. I live at 18 Spring Cove Road in Ferry Lane, and I'm speaking, I guess I've been elected spokesperson for a number of people that live contiguous to the property that's now under development. I know the property well, so does my wife, because we used to own it for about 50 years. And the bank itself it goes from steep to very steep to vertical. And when I first heard there was going to be a cart path made down to the dock, I was rather impressed with the engineering challenge that they were going to face. So our concern is not so much, well, it is where it's being built, because we looked at the site plans, and none of us took drafting in college, so we were stymied by it. Words like the driveway, we never saw a driveway. As a matter of fact, I can look down on the construction site clearly every day. And we didn't know what was connecting to what. And we walked down, we looked at it, and we saw these walls that were half completed, incomplete, and we couldn't figure out how a vehicle, most like a golf cart or something like that, would get down there without going farther out to the near vertical portion of the bank. Now, we have beach rights to this beach, and it is our desire to protect the beach. Our main concern is we want the beach to remain unchanged. We don't want erosion. We don't want rocks falling into it. Where they're building now is off to a corner. It may not pose an immediate threat, but I can tell you that we have a photo of the bank that used to exist, and it was lush and green. I mean, it was impenetrable with the vegetation. And now it is all denuded. And there is erosion. And I have walked down to the beach on a heavy day. I pass it around?
If you can describe it.
Sure. This is the beach, bank.
Take the
The way it used to
microphone.
be.
Needs a microphone for the
So is
TV.
This is the way that it used to be.
So you're looking up from the beach, is that?
We're standing down on the beach, and you can see part of the dock, the old dock that was there. I say that because now it is barren, and I've walked down to the beach after some heavy rains, and we've had fairly significant sand erosion off the beach. There are about 20 people that have beach rights to this beach, and it is their joy in the summer. And all we were concerned was we want no erosion, we want the beach to be preserved as it always has been for the enjoyment of the people that live there and for their children. They go down there and fish for snapper blues, they swim, dog goes down there way too often, but we just don't want to see it disturbed forever. So we would like to know specifically what beach erosion methods are going to be taken, and they must be permanent. I mean, right now there's some hay bales, and that's not permanent. And we want to know, how far out is this road going to go? Because it's going to affect erosion, unless it serpentines really quickly right down to the dock itself. So those are our concerns. We want the beach preserved. We'd like to make sure it's not eroded, and we want to maintain a right-of-way, which we don't feel is threatened because the construction's at the other end of the beach. Did I miss anything? Yes, there are about 20 families, I believe, 17, 18 families that have beach rights to that beach.
This is where the path has to go.
No, if you can imagine a horseshoe like this, and the beach is over here, and there used to be a path walking down to the dock over here.
This is what they're trying to protect.
Now, there's going to be some kind of a cart path, and evidently there's no driveway. We couldn't figure out where the driveway was. Maybe we stood there and we couldn't see what was going on. And we would also like to know, really, as good neighbors, when will this job be completed? Because we are, and I've mentioned this to Mr. Blasino, we are in almost the end of the second decade of construction down this road. And specifically, if they're going to build this, they're going to need a lot of wall, there's going to be a lot of drilling, there's going to be cement trucks coming, so it'd like to be done now, before it's summer and people are outside enjoying the outdoors. I think it's a reasonable request. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Yes, sir.
So we have to take that portion in here.
I'm Tom Hayes, number 5 Boston Trail, Branford. I'm opposed to the project, and a couple of reasons are, one neighbor contacted me, and it was, he's not here, he's out of the area. His understanding and recollection is that there was a freshwater spring in this area, thus the name Spring Cove. He believes, it's his recollection that he has seen it in the past. He's been in the area about 20 years. I've only been in the area about 5. I looked at the print. I don't see any spring indicated there at all. I know there's been quite a bit of work done here over the years. My neighbor told me he thought it was about 20. Mr. Schroeder, I believe I just mentioned it was almost 20. He's been here longer than I have. That's number one. Number two, the owner of the property and the petitioner is really not a good neighbor. And he has not managed his other properties very well. It's essentially, the planner was there, and he saw an active construction site, and it's been that way for a while. He has a pile of about 10 yards of loom, uncovered. It's been that way for over a month. There are mounds of debris, wood, timber, members, 20-inch diameter, and there's a large pile of rock, granite, other things that were brought from off-site. As was noted earlier, they've already done things on the property without permits. You were asking for additional sedimentation erosion control methods to be installed. But they haven't done that on this one. And from being out here for 4 years or so, sedimentation and erosion control is not really a high point of any of the projects that are going on in town. One right nearby, number 3 Spring Cove, that's been in progress for 3 years now. We've seen mud and sand and whatnot running down the road for the entire site of that project every time it rains. So, at any rate, this person, he has a large project going on number 48, which is adjoining it. That's where all this other activity, this construction activity and storage of materials is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm that person, Roger Boissino. You did a pretty good job with the name. As you know, I've owned the property for a long time now. I've been there for nearly 20 years. And it's a series of acquisitions. It's not that I started this and been doing it for 20 years. I've bought the properties along the way, and I'm trying to improve the properties. The answer to the question of where is the spring is gone. I worked with Larry Fisher, Bob Criscola, and now Jim has taken over. And every step of the way, I have not done this on my own. I've done it with council. So I've been directed. Larry will tell you the reason the spring is gone is because they put the sewer in the road. And once they put the sewer in the road, they cut off the water flow that goes to that spring. And I believe the Indians actually built the spring. We were interested in actually keeping the spring, but it was gone. And I think we've acted very responsibly. I echo Bob's. We want to get this thing done. We don't want it to carry on. We want to keep the beach, and we're doing everything possible. We were held up. We were in a process of doing it and trying to complete this. All right, and hopefully we can get over this hump and we can get it done. And we are doing it in the winter, so it doesn't disturb our neighbors. So if anybody has any questions of me, I'm here. If you want to come down to the property, I'll show you around.
Okay. Thank you.
How long would it take to complete that project?
Well, this one?
Yes.
Well, this one was their property, so I bought the property, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. So that project has been 3 years maybe.
It seems like a long time for what needs to be done. I'm just wondering what...
Well, we took the house off, we're putting the vineyard in.
Okay.
So there's a lot of activity with,
But I mean, this particular route down to the...
Yeah, you have to know, because it's really coming from the road.
Mm-hmm.
That road that comes down, and it's been the engineers that looked at it, we're going to put holding tanks in. So the water just comes shooting down the driveway. And what happens is, and then it hits this rock formation, and actually goes through the rock. So we're trying to stop that. I want to stop the erosion, and I want to get that capstone that's there out of there so we can protect it. And that's why we built the walls.
Is that,
I'm all for erosion control.
is that water that's going through there, coming through that
It's going all the
steeper?
way up to the top
Well,
of Ferry, yeah.
I'm just trying to respond to the issue with the vegetated slope. Is that going through there, and is that what?
Yeah, that's some of it's gone through the slope and what's
So it
happened.
got
that was the
overwatered
material.
and,
Yeah.
do you have any
So it's
plans
cleaned up
of,
and-
do you have any plans of adding planting to that to bring back some of the stability to the slope
We're
and
putting
something?
vineyard. If I can grow grapes there, I'm gonna try to grow grapes there.
Oh, on this steep slope?
If I can.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's where they're grown naturally anyway.
Oh, I
And
didn't,
it's a southern exposure, it's great.
okay, I didn't realize that was the plan, okay.
Okay.
Because
Thank
I think that's what I'm hearing is important, is that buffer to the beach and keeping that
you.
green.
What I'm just
lush.
saying is that buffer has to go back.
Move back towards the road, well, push it because of the road. Yeah, that whole edge of where the grade is needs some support.
No, I agree, I'd like.
So if you started that project on Monday, assuming, let's say, hypothetically, start on Monday, when would it be finished? What would be the time frame? A month? 2 months?
Yes, well, it's gonna be weather dependent. As
Well, you know, all things being
We've
equal.
got great weather, I mean.
Well,
it's-
but all things being equal, I mean, you know, there's gonna be some kind of time frame. Is it more than a year?
Oh, no. No, our intention was they get done by spring.
Okay.
So we've had some good days, so we got down there and started it.
Oh, you have, okay.
Yeah. And then then the lady showed up and said, can't do that.
Okay.
Cease and desist, I think they call it.
So we'd like to, if we can get rid of that, we can get the project done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Sure.
My name is David Yacarino, and I live in the neighborhood. I just have one question. It's a request for a special exception and CAM. And could someone explain to me what the special exception being requested is and what a CAM involves?
Harry can handle that one.
The special exception is under Section 6.8 of the zoning regulations, and it's due to the fact that there will be, or they're proposing, earth disturbance and regrading within 100 feet of essentially the ocean. So wetlands, critical coastal resources, which the beach is. So that's one reason why it's under that section of the regulations, that they need approval under that section. And then CAM refers to the Coastal Area Management Act, so this is also a coastal site plan because it's within a certain distance, or I believe is 1,500 feet from Long Island Sound or tidal waters, so that requires that approval process be followed as well.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to comment? Okay, does the applicant have some responses?
Yeah, just acknowledge a couple things. There is at least, I think, 20 other properties that do have beach rights over that other piece. But you'd have to research all the deeds in all of Possum Park from when the Ecclesiastical Society got broke up to find every one of them, but to our knowledge, there's at least 20. But that, again, that's on this piece. That accesses I'll say the northern end of the site, and all our activities at the southern end of the two pieces. We're not even on that piece for this project. It does probably appear to be rather large construction site because there's multiple properties and multiple things going on. One piece has a house going up, another piece that are in the process of planting a vineyard. Just because of the access is all off the same spot, I think it gives the illusion of being all one big project, and it's actually multiple separate projects. Mr. Boissonnault mentioned the spring. I don't think that what we're doing here is actually going to affect any of the beach erosion. Beach erosion's usually caused by tidal activities. We're quite a bit above the beach in elevation, and what we're doing here at why we're here is because of activities concerning rock removal, which has very little erosion potential. And occasionally a boulder or a piece of rock may fall down, but they would go down by hand and pull it back out. Generally, they trying to keep the beach clean. Mr. Boysen's down there time to time cleaning the beach himself. So again, he mentioned if it may make more sense once you see it. You could go down there and Roger will give you a tour and show you what's going on. But if you feel that's necessary.
The intent, again, is you want to remove some rock, basically to get a pathway to get, because you're replacing the dock.
Correct.
So
Initially,
you
it'd be a path for, to get a little bit bigger machine down there to lift the dock out. Ultimately, it will stay there because it'll be a way to wheel carts up and down from the dock.
So historically, was that dock accessed from the beach and the path that's now on the parcel 23?
I believe there was
You know,
an
and down and
extensive
around?
set of stairs that kind of came from the
Well-
road down to the dock.
There was a house on the, further away on the other side of Ferry Lane from the water, where
was
the
a-
vineyard is now sort of
There was,
developing.
yes, there was a house. at
So was
top
the
of
dock
that,
associated with that house?
I believe these properties were.
We're all in common,
Yes.
okay.
So where's this vineyard, and is it part of this property? It's, okay, it's up here.
The property's 48 Wakefield. But
Okay.
it does face this.
Right, but
this slopes down.
my concern is the comments of the, you know, if there's erosion affecting that planted steep slope, you know, I'm trying to understand that that is going to be protected.
So,
Or revegetated or enhanced, and it didn't make sense that that would
Right.
have a vineyard there, so I got a little
so
confused.
this property
Okay,
kind of goes up,
okay, that's,
comes down to this road. I would say 2/3 of it, or at least half of it, have already been planted with vines. Some of the lower end of this property, they've been using as stockpile material because they can't be on this side of the road for any of this stuff.
okay.
And actually, there was another application that, another plan with the ZEO that showed where the stockpiles were to keep them out of the 100-foot review zone.
I guess my
yeah.
concern is I don't see any erosion controls for that slope from the beach up to, you know, the 2018 and 16 contours. So I tied them in, and I understand how you have to clear in here to get the access here, but what I'm hearing is that this piece wants vegetative protection.
Right.
So I'd like to see a little more detail on how you're going to protect this, well, I guess, this part of the site vegetatively,
So
and with the, because that's.
That is that.
That would be over here.
that's this, right here.
Yeah, exactly, that little piece.
So that's still there. I just took those pictures yesterday.
Right, so that's the piece, and that's, I think, the green lush area that I'm hearing is of concern
Right.
for the people that are using the beach. So to me, this is what's critical from an erosion or a revegetation, or, you know, how this edge, how these are gonna tie in and, you know, not create additional runoff or what, I mean, I'll leave that up to you.
I agree. So that, the top of that, where these hay bales are, is this
is along
corner.
here, right.
Is this corner. And once you get past here, you can see it's, in this picture.
This is the piece you have
It's
to chip
this.
away, right.
It's rock.
Right in here.
Right.
So you're not touching the existing
No.
vegetated
No,
area?
we're not working down there. And basically, once you get past this corner, this is all rock, and there isn't any soil to erode in this corner.
Right, because this is all rock through here.
Taken down.
Right, so
The
there's-
disturbance that's going to be done is already done.
Right.
So there's a
The soil
line of where the
disturbance.
rock ties into that vegetation that I think we need to be very careful about and
Agreed.
try to protect
In fact, we
or
talked-
perhaps enhance.
One of the things that we're gonna do, we talked about yesterday, is I'm gonna actually have my survey crew go out there, and this VE zone line, we're actually gonna paint on the rock so they know where they are as far
Okay.
as where to stop with the rock activities.
Okay. So, I mean, and
Is there anything proposed upslope of this? But this has all been disturbed without approvals, right?
Right.
Right up to the property line, which is here. So it's not far beyond.
well, what's
this.
happening in here? This is what I'm in here.
Right.
Right, well,
Right.
This
What's
is a
the
gravel
plan?
road?
Well, there's this is
This-
Ferry
this-
Lane, and this is a riprap.
so if you came up from the
Sloping
dock,
down.
you would come up this way and then come up here. And then he
Into
could
this
either
riprap.
He could either go down this into the property or up this way.
Well, so you're coming in here.
Nope, right in here.
So this is all level?
This where this stone area here, this is all slope. This is all rock slope.
Right, so you're slab, and then
You
you're
could kind of see it back here in the picture.
in here.
Yeah.
So what's that gonna be as far as the finished material? Gravel? Is that a-
Remove the rocks and reestablish the kind of vegetation, or?
Well, no, and they need it for the path because you're essentially doing a Z down the slope, right?
Right.
So he's got, so he's.
So that's the path?
He's coming up here and he's got a zigzag up
Yeah,
here,
yeah. So where you coming
essentially
out
to
of?
get up, this gravel here is 20, so this elevation's higher than this
Right,
elevation.
right.
So he's zigzagging here
Right.
and up, but the question is what, is this all rock?
Zigzagging on this.
Well,
So
it's
On
rock
here.
to here,
This is
and
slope.
then this is.
Yeah, but where are you coming after you get up here?
You're going
back?
through here, because this is, if this is the lowest, this is the middle low, then this
So this
slopes,
is
and then
all
this is the highest.
Like a terrace almost.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the lowest terrace, sloping into a middle terrace.
So how wide is this, and is there an area for vegetation here, or is this all going to be switchbacks basically to get down there?
It's basically switchbacks.
So
As
maybe-
far as
maybe
the
a little-
surface material,
So 22, and then.
stone, yeah. It'll be like crushed stone.
So if there's a way to
It
maybe.
is gravel, I mean, it's gotten dirty, but this will be gravel, and then this is rock.
So if this is, how wide?
That's only about 8.5 feet,
So is that all you need for the path?
yes.
So clearly you've got more than 8.5 feet here. Can you tell us where you're gonna bring that next 8 feet and then try to introduce a hedge or something, or, maybe, some kind of ground cover in the sloped riprap wall to get some green and root erosion control in there that can establish itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Not right this minute, but yes.
I'm giving you the sort of the
Right, I mean,
yeah,
basically-
conditions, I guess.
Having all that on the plan would be.
Okay.
Is this partially an after-the-fact permit? Because,
Some of it, because this upper part of this has already been done.
right,
Yeah, I don't think he realized that he was in a coastal area review area.
yeah, I'm just trying to think what it is we're approving. We're approving what he's already done and what they're proposing to do, and just to try to get a sense of what the entire impact is.
Well, yeah, I think you're approving with conditions, asking for, the finished grading in that mid-level, a better definition between that lowest level and the steepest slope, and then what vegetation you can introduce or offer to protect to
Sure.
introduce a way to vegetatively support the rock.
Right.
And document the ENS controls. Same
Right.
time, the stuff you already have out there, the hay bales, and what you would need to add to comply.
Okay, so we should continue this?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and
Is
if
there any-
anyone wants to look at the site, we can
Yeah, I'll drive
go
up.
take a look. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, absolutely.
Jim, I'm just curious, how does the applicant get to the dock now?
There was a significant set of stairs that come up the rock, up to the road level.
Are they going to be eliminated?
They've been gone for a while.
Okay.
So
Was that
basically, you
with
can't
those
get
wood-
at the dock at this point, really,
Not
very-
without going down. the river to-
walking down the slope some other way, yeah.
Walking across the beach.
And you didn't want to just replace the stairs, because I guess you couldn't just replace the dock?
Well, I think if you're a boater, you're always carrying stuff, and so the idea of being able to bring something on a little cart, especially with the steep slopes, makes it
Yep.
a much more accessible kind of,
Okay,
area.
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
So we'll continue this matter as
We
a
have one
public
more
hearing.
question.
Oh, yes, sir, go ahead. What?
I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but the machinery that is being proposed to be brought down, did I hear correctly that that's going to be left there to remove boats from the water? Did I hear
No.
that
Just the
correctly?
dock when they're replacing it.
The dock going to be replaced and none of the machinery is going to stay down there?
So once the new dock's in,
Once the
they'll
new
take
dock-
the machinery out.
So there's no kind of portable lift and proposed or anything like that?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is it a fixed dock or floating dock? It's a fixed, okay. There's a
Yeah.
portion to fix and then so they have to get machinery down there to pull up the floating portion at the end of the season?
They ever happened before, but to answer the question, this is the fixed part, and then there's a rainbow float.
Okay, I just didn't know if they were planning to pull out. I know over another part, they would pull out the floating part of the dock every year and stack it, so I didn't know if that was their intention on this, which you would need
The path.
a little bit better access to do.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments before we, okay, so we'll continue this to our next meeting. That brings us then to item number 5, which is listed as a public hearing, but I don't think it is. It's,
No, that's incorrect. And it's a mistake on the agenda. That item should be under old business at number 11.
okay.
And the public hearing date is erroneous, so if you consider moving that item to old business number 11, that would take care of that. Since we're on the topic of agenda items, we did receive one application, even though it was in the office, did not make it on the agenda, so potentially add a new business item 2, which is an application for a special exception, actually 2 of them, in the coastal area management, coastal site plan approval for property 1923 Buena Vista Road.
Is there a motion made to change this item number 5 of public hearings to number 11 under old business and to add item number 2 to new business that Harry just described?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
For discussion, all in favor? Okay, so then that brings us then to item number 6, which is the SB development, Summit Place development. I think I indicated at the beginning of the public hearing that we intended to open this and continue it, and that's what we're doing. So for item number 6, the 14, 21, and 22 Summit Place, we'll open that public hearing and continue it till our March
5th, that was at the request of the applicant.
Yeah, March 5th meeting at this same location. So that concludes our public hearings for this evening. In terms of, we may be able to address some of the items we've heard as public hearings. The items that we've heard were, number 1 was the
Can I beg the chair's indulgence for a 2-minute break?
certainly. Let's take a recess.
People are so confusing, it showed some grades, but it didn't tell you the proposed grade. opportunity to plant in here, and you might have an opportunity to plant along here.
If it's something you can plant in, if it's
Well,
just rock, though.
Right, and then so he's going 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, and say this is 30, and then he's coming up here onto Ferry Lane, which is the road here. I'm having a hard time reading the line work. But you see what I'm saying? So if you did a cross section through here, right? You're essentially, you've got the water, a steep planted slope, a pad site, like a little wall or curb that's increasing, and then a higher site, right? And then a sloped riprap wall and then a level site. So you might have, so this could be planted on here. There might be an area in here to plant where you're coming around where this wall is. It's a little small. And then this needs to be planted.
You have to, I mean, it's rock.
That's, they may not be able to. That's why I was kind of asking.
Stop, create a bed, basically.
Well, the thing is, picture my arms, right? So this is going up this way, and this is going down this way. So there's a sloped area in here that's meeting and turning, as is in here. And, I'm a landscape architect, so I'm always taking plans, I'm sorry. But I had a hard time, seeing the edge of road, so I'm just showing them if this is the edge of the path, you're essentially trying to get a turnable area here to go up and to go up and to go up, and there may be some opportunities, either whether it's riprap or, or sloped planting.
Vegetation, soil is what you
Right, but I don't know if to get to the grades, he's got to add soil back.
Oh, no, we'll do it all. It's all stuff.
Right, but I heard that from here over, like this part, they would really like to keep that planted green. I know, and that's the, yeah.
Because of the erosion, this is erosion.
Right.
These rocks are breaking up. What we're trying to do is clear it out. Because the last thing you want is this rock stuff.
Just trying to take
Right,
yourself a look at.
right, and so I'm trying to see if there's any way to get some kind of soil back in those rocks to get some kind of roots to hold it in, yeah. So, yeah, so I mean, I don't know how much over the existing grade this is, or if there's an opportunity to put some plugs of some, some ivy or ground veg in here or not.
Trust me, I'd love to grow grapes there.
You just want to do an armored wall?
Yeah.
Because of the,
Because what's happening is the erosion is, it's all this loose stuff that dies. in
Right.
Compost, right, and then it rolls down the rock.
right, so you almost need like a curb here,
Yes.
Yeah.
On this
Track the
edge.
runoff so it doesn't do any more damage.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna control the runoff. We're gonna bring this elevation up and control
Okay.
the runoff from this. It comes down here like this.
Right.
Now, but this is a building site, but we're gonna fix this.
Okay.
A lot of this is stone that we can crush.
Yeah, I didn't understand that your south-facing orchard was here. I thought you were saying it was here. And I was like, I got confused.
Here, now I don't think it's take it down here once that's all
Yeah,
cleared
so
out.
you have lots of time to get to do whatever you're gonna do in
This
that
is the
area.
only Merlot that's growing.
You're gonna give the commission bottles?
Look, it's Merlot because of the temperature.
It's the only kind of red wine I like, so
Yeah, it's on the,
southern-facing
yeah.
slope.
So,
You're
Yeah,
gonna be
no, it's
competing
gonna
with
be
Rose.
it's for Al.
Al who? Oh, okay. Oh, nice. From Rose's Orchard?
So he's
Okay.
gonna take wine.
Ah, because he's got a bunch of grapes over,
Yeah, but he can't grow it.
you can't, okay, oh, interesting. Oh, I see,
It's a novelty, it's just a, just.
yeah. The
It's
heat,
a
sure.
point of
Nice.
conversation.
Yeah, in Bordeaux, if you see it, Bordeaux, they actually all stone,
Okay,
right? And the stone holds the heat.
right, interesting.
Let's get back to work.
Okay, so hopefully that explains
Yeah,
to,
do you mind if I?
take him a sketch. He's just not going far enough with the engineering to communicate all the lines, that's why I was confused.
Okay, I think we're still on camera.
Oh,
Yeah, you're there.
I do all that talking on camera?
Someone's there.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's go back to our agenda, which I misplaced.
Here, you want mine? I have a draft.
No, I got it. Okay, let's, the first item was our JK Partners, the Brantford Motel in the proposed Hampton Inn. Harry, is this something we can act on, or do you need time to get a resolution together?
I think we've got proposed findings and conditions. Let me reel my mind back here. I think we covered everything.
First of all, do we have, what, the regular 5 members?
Yeah.
What do we think of this before we vote on it?
It's an improvement in my book.
Okay, it's an improvement.
Well, you've got a brand name hotel that's going to have a set of recognizable standards where we don't have one now, and I think that's
Very similar to
Much
the
needed.
Holiday Inn Express
Right,
that
which
we
I-
replaced that.
which is
property.
doing fabulously. So we have a Holiday Inn, we gotta have a Hilton, right? Keep the commerce going.
Okay,
It's a good location. I think we need it in our industrial zone.
yeah.
Because we do have a lot of companies coming in.
We want to encourage companies to come in, so if we have meeting rooms and places for them to
Sure,
stay, then we can maybe attract the
yeah,
companies from further out.
right. Joe, you agree?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah, it's upgrade, it's got a pool. It's, it's,
Now,
Yeah.
restaurant,
Make it a winter pool, and
Yeah.
you got it.
yeah, so, yeah, and it's replacing something that's good to go.
actually, I think having 25% less runoff is a very good thing.
Yep, absolutely,
So
yeah.
that's a-
Update, you get sidewalks,
It's in a perfect location, that's not gonna change.
Yeah.
Anything.
okay. Okay, so yeah, sounds like we're in favor of this. So
Okay.
that brings the next issue. Are we in a position to vote on it?
I think you probably are. The only concern remaining in my mind is the phase construction and any potential comment the building of the fire folks would have on that. But should that result in any required changes to the site, they can come back, or if it's something minor, I can do it. So I think they're willing to go ahead. I don't see, there's no requirement that the commission make sure that both the fire marshal and the building official are completely comfortable in all details and respects with the potential phasing plan. So we'll work that out afterwards, I
And
think.
don't they have to
Okay,
come back with signage?
And the restaurant?
And the
They're certainly going to have to come
Yeah,
back,
that's a
absolutely.
condition, right?
That's a
That-
condition, right.
Right. Is
right.
police and fire a condition as well?
I don't think we really need to, they're going to need to approve the demolition. They're going to need to approve how that all works themselves with their own individual authorities. So I think the only thing I'd be concerned about is that going to impact the site plan and the phasing plan the way they've laid it out.
Right.
And if it requires minor tweaks, we can deal with the necessary approvals at that point.
Okay. Do you have a piece of paper, or do we have a piece of paper?
I have it all written up. I think it's in front of you. It's the staff memo. It should be dated February 20th.
Okay.
It says application 1912.2. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. I think it also has a staff report from the consulting engineer and the several page 11 by 17 reduced size plans. So I
Okay,
think,
it's dated February 20th, okay,
Yep. And I can just run through that very quickly if you like.
okay.
Most of the things I noted during the public hearing. So there's 2 findings. One would be finding a consistency with the special exception criteria, and 2 would be agreeing to a landscaping waiver
For the hotel?
with a,
Why?
excuse me?
Why?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Did they submit a landscape plan?
That might not be necessary here, and frankly, might be a cut and paste thing, so I don't think that's really needed. I'll take that back, excuse me. So you can take finding 2 out. Condition 1 is a standard condition about all construction site work be limited to that's shown on substantially, that's shown on the site plans, and except may be modified to conform to the requirements of the approval, or further modified by the commission or staff. Number 2 is request that any changes to the plans be submitted in full sets of the plans that exist currently in the file. Number 3 is the limitation on the construction of that second building, the 3,000 square foot commercial building, and the prohibition on that until they submit the full plans for the elevations, the final elevations, including proposed building lights and so forth. So that is fairly similar to what you did for 250 North Main Street. Number 4, typical condition requiring the cementation erosion controls in place prior to construction. Number 5 will require several changes to the site plans. I think I mentioned all these things, the details for the refuse, recyclables, the hotel storage area enclosures, the note for the requiring compliance by the contractor with Section 6.8 of the regs. Item C, about the topsoil. Item D, about the significant trees. They're not noted as to be removed in the way they should be on the site plans. Item E has to do with a couple comments, remaining comments from the town engineer. EI being about the outfall and the size, material, and condition of it, and any potential needs for maintenance or any other improvements to it. Item E2 would be about the bus stop, and require that to be added to the plans and constructed, as we talked about. Item E3 would require the crosswalk across the main driveway connecting the 2 sidewalk sections. And item E4 would require the applicant coordinate with DOT to ensure the repair of the existing pedestrian phase actuators, the traffic signal, and the crosswalk across the intersection on its east side across Route 1, as we talked about. Item F there should read condition 6 instead of condition 5. And didn't quite finish this one, so the wording at the end should be including shields and/or diffusers to prevent glare from direct exposure to LEDs by the public on East Main Street or Route 1. Optionally, you can take this out, but I think some of the recent projects, the LEDs are very bright and piercing, even at the 15 to 20 foot level. If the lights are really close to a road, you still see that sharp light. And whether they can do, these fixtures are flat on the bottom, so you see the LEDs, there's no shroud around them. Whether they could pick a different fixture, or it may not be, maybe demonstrated not be a problem at all if you can't really see them. But I think at 20 feet up, where they're located, you're going to see them. And I think if you don't do something about it, you're probably going to be pretty unhappy with the results, because you're just getting more and more sites that have got these intense lights, and they're really shining right out in the road and other properties, despite the fact that the amount of light on the ground does drop down and it meets the regulations and all the requirements. Item G would require the low hedges we talked about along that first row of parking spaces, spacing out the London plane trees, they no problem with. Item G, 3, 4, and 5, Roman numerals are just suggestions. They see no problem with that. Item 6 is the lighting condition. I'd add the words full size in front of cut sheets down on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 7, 8, 9, and 10 are typically boilerplate conditions. One's about signage and new replacement lights. 8 is about dust control as required by the zoning officer. 9 is the typical landscape condition requiring, as an ongoing requirement, the survival of landscaping or replacement in kind. And number 10 would would require any changes or modifications to the building or the use to come back and get approval from the commission.
So here, you're recommending deleting finding number 2.
Right.
And then there was some language to 5F.
Language 5F, right.
5F, and then about shields and diffusers.
And changing the reference to condition 5 to condition 6 and F.
Okay.
And then 2 words on condition 6 itself.
Full size.
Full size.
It's okay. With those changes, is there a motion to approve the application in accordance with the finding and the conditions in the memo as amended by Harry? Moved by John. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Joe. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, congratulations.
Great.
Okay, so that's that one. And then number 2, 3 Elms Road, is that something we can take care of? Or I think we had a proposal.
I think so. There's a couple of things you may want to strike out based on some of the discussion, so let me, it had to do with the landscaping, which was condition 5E.
Right, I think we talked about eliminating
Eliminating, I think, on line 3, the closing of the gap.
Well, I think he did, since the previous week, he extended it up more than halfway.
Yeah, but there still is a gap.
There was
so
still
I
a
think
gap in
this
here,
one-
recommended filling it, and he said, no, I mean, you
Right.
pointed out.
Well, I was just asking about if that was intentional or, you know.
That was the parking backup where you pointed out they.
Oh, I thought you meant
Well, there's
the
that, and
swale
there's
side.
the other
I'm on
side
swale
too. There's
side.
also on the neighbor's side with the house.
Yes, I don't think you can physically do it where the parking is at all. It's-
Yeah, that's
I mean, if
fine.
you could propose a fence, perhaps, but then you're not going to have an overhang for the.
It's very tight there, yeah. So the, so if you took out line 3 of 5E, which says closure of the gap and landscaping proposal along the eastern property line, took those words out. You want to leave probably the verification with the DP of the appropriateness of the plantings for the vegetated buffer area. Additional plantings on the east side of the building, replace those. I mean, I don't, you can take that out.
I think that's.
They can always put them in there if they want to.
It's
That's,
an owner's preference.
it's not really required.
Okay, so that takes out additional, that clause to the next comma?
Yes, so after the words tidal watercourse, we were going to add, at least I was going to propose the words, which should be expanded to include the area of any parking space to be removed.
Okay, so you're going to be, which should be expanded to include,
The area of any parking spaces to be removed.
and then you're going to delete the next part,
The
additional.
next,
Right.
the next comma. And then I think you need to comply with the regulations, the requirements about the preservation certificate trees. And I think after that, where it starts in the addition of plantings along the western side of the property line to screen the headlights of cars, get rid of all that.
Okay.
So all
put
the
a-
way down to the end.
Okay, put a period after preserved.
Correct.
Okay. Any other changes?
I think that's it.
Okay.
How about G, the 1-inch stone? Or you going to, wasn't that
well,
being
if it-
consolidated to the corner, not along the length of the road?
Well, I think we left that up, and the language does leave it up to, or replaced by an alternative improvement to maintain the roadway runoff within the right-of-way satisfactory of the town engineer. We could change the wording, maintain or appropriately direct.
Yeah, I think that's.
Or appropriately direct, add those words in there,
Yeah, I would put that after,
after maintain.
after right-of-way.
Or
So it doesn't necessarily have to stay within the right-of-way.
or
If they want to
appropriately-
direct it into the swale and that's acceptable to town engineer, makes sense. Just sounds like what they wanted to do with it.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Anyone else see anything? Okay. Okay, so then the changes to the written draft are changes to the 5E. We struck a bunch and we added it a little bit. And then also to 5G, added the appropriately direct language. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, does someone want to make a motion to approve the application with the finding and conditions in the memo of February 23rd, 2020, as we just discussed with those changes?
Chuck, remember I'm recused now?
Okay, John's recused, so you're voting for it.
So moved as amended.
Moved as amended by Marcy, is there a second? Second Fred, further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so that brings us then to minutes. Minutes of our February 6th meeting. had a chance to review, and does someone want to make a motion on those?
Move to approve the minutes as read.
Okay, Joe made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
For discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so minutes are approved. Correspondence?
We've got a couple of items. Let's see, I've got a, technically the commission, we received this in the planning and zoning office, was a notice of noncompliance at 148 Highland Avenue, respect to a storing of a float, waterway to the coastal jurisdiction line without prior authorization by the state, since it's their domain. And we received a letter, which I have copies to pass out, from Attorney Jim Perito, who was here earlier.
Still here.
He's still here.
He's still here. There he is. So I will pass that out, whether you want to try to consider taking that up tonight, or you want to do a little bit more, let staff do a little bit more research and discuss that another night. I will let you decide.
That's, given our agenda, I think the latter is what I think. Especially we.
9:15.
Yeah. But we should,
Oh, it's a self-storage?
okay, it looks,
Other copies?
yeah. Here you go. Yeah, I haven't seen this, so I don't know what it is, but I think we could,
It seems like an interpretation question that they want to do a little research on, and if you, hopefully can have that done by the next meeting.
okay.
5th.
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll
If that's,
direct, yeah, we'll,
does that time frame work? Okay.
okay. Okay, so we'll have someone, staff or someone do some research and also take a look at it. We'll take it up. Any other correspondence?
No, nothing else new.
Okay, great. That brings us then to our old business, and item number 1 of our old business is 165, 195 Main Street, Kevin Curry, applicant and owner. And then we had an issue on this one in terms of the public hearing extended over three sessions, and I'm not sure everyone's appeared or have listened to the tape. So what's
Yeah,
our
at this
status?
point, the records we have, so I believe Fred, Chuck, you, and Joe Chadwick are the only 3 that have sat through everything. So I think we have John missing on the 6th, last meeting. You have, okay. And then Joe and Marcy weren't here on the 23rd. I think there was a brief discussion then. So if you wanted to participate, you'd have to listen to the recording. I know we just let you know about that today, so I apologize.
We'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah,
You
maybe
may
before
wanna-
when I make a decision, that's fine.
Yeah, you have quorum now, so
Okay.
you want to do something tonight.
Okay, there's 4 of us, okay. This is a tight one. This is the Main Street, the proposed gas station, convenience store on the site, across from Shelley's. The proposal, it's, obviously been a service station, now a traditional service station with some high-priced gas. And there's also the liquor store on the site and approved apartments for upstairs. And there's a number of issues that are, and the proposal is to take out one of the bays and to convert that to a convenience store and to put up new other improvements on the site and to make it more of a convenience store. And so the issues, the main issues, there were a number of issues, but the main issue I thought was the parking issue, because there's 16 parking spaces on the site. Under our regs, it requires some 34 or something like that. And the question is, do we, and there's a provision in our regulations where we can, if they provide grounds for reducing parking by showing they're providing commuting or other off-site locations. You know, can we address it that way? There wasn't anything firm on that. There was an oral, the owner did say that Richland orally agreed that people could park over there, but wasn't willing to put anything in writing. There was some neighbor concern. The neighbors that spoke were in opposition. They were concerned about traffic, and they're concerned about a difficult situation already because Shelley's is right there. And Shelley's, frankly, doesn't have any parking. People park there. And so thought this would accentuate a not good situation. There was also some concern about, a little bit about the use, about the lighting, that it would open at 5 a.m., a convenience store. It's next to a residential area. That's the proposal. And whether that's a good use. That was, some objections were made to that. So there was a downside. The upside, I think, is that somebody wants to improve a property that they bought. And the other thing that was said is that this would allow the guy to stay in business if they approved it, and we didn't know if he would go out of business if they, that was kind of presented to us. That was, so.
He would have to close down his business because of the parking.
No, yeah, I mean, in other words, they can continue to do what they're doing now, obviously. Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah, so they can continue doing what
I
they're
thought he
doing.
presented that the maintenance part would have to retire and go away so that
He-
they could do what they wanted.
Yeah, if he wanted to, he could kick the guy out and come in with a new thing and get better, closer parking. He could eliminate some stuff. But he didn't say he would. I mean, yeah, Harry?
You just might want to be clear about who's in deliberations. Sorry, Marcy.
Oh,
I know,
yeah.
but yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
deliberations,
I didn't think I was deliberating.
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, the deliberations are the four of us right now, and we'll see where we are. The four of us are John, Joe, Fred, and myself. So,
I would just like to say this, I think when you have a gas station or a repair station, it's not like you have two mechanics and you have two cars that you work on. You have two mechanics, they work on 5 cars. While they're waiting for parts for one, they start another one, they find there's something different. And so there's, the reason why there's so many parking spaces required is because you need those many. It's just not one mechanic to one car. And that was kind of the impression I got that was being made, well, it was only 2 mechanics. That's irrelevant how many mechanics there are. There's a little gas station, all they do repairs, there's no gas there. At the triangle of South Montaouise and Indian Neck Avenue. And there's probably 8 cars there. There's one bay. So I could see if we were going to make a concession on a few spaces, but I think we were going to cut them almost in half, weren't we? We looked for something like that. There was a significant number of spaces that he wanted eliminated.
there was something like 33 or 34
I
required.
think it's
and they-
34, and they're asking a reduction of up to 18 spaces. They would only have 16 left to serve the
Entire
all uses.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The liquor store or whatever, yeah.
the 4 uses, and right now, I think the office is vacant. I don't think any parking is used for that, but if ever someone was there, I assume they would, so. Are there other issues, and Harry, did you have other further comments about lighting and other things?
I did. I could pass something out. I did get a revised lighting plan. I think it was the day before the last portion of the public hearing. And I'll just note that on the lighting plan, they had foot candle readings and lumen generation of lighting from the fixtures. But it was all noted that all those numbers are based on 65% of the total output of the lights that are proposed. So I don't think we've ever looked at a lighting plan and said, okay, if you just turn the dim switch down to 65%, it meets the regs, but you still have a switch where you can turn up to 100% or 70% or 80%, depending on what you want to do, and then you're exceeding what the regulations limit you to. So in the past, it's always been what's on the plan is 100% of the fixture output. Somebody could put a dimmer switch and dim it down, but you'd have approval to go up to 100%. Now they're saying, well, if you dim it down to 65%, we meet the regs, which actually don't even quite do, but the fixture itself could put out a lot more light than what's shown on the plan submitted, so I think that's a problem.
Right, thanks. John,
The
thoughts?
issue is parking, and I just, as much as I, am sympathetic to the owners, I just don't see how I could vote for that. I think, it's adjacent to a neighborhood that is stressed now at that intersection. And I don't think you can rely on a verbal agreement for additional parking across the street. They're not going to give you a written agreement because it's not always going to be what it is today. But this site is always going to be what it is today. So I mean, I don't know how you can base a decision on that. So I would be voting against it.
Joe, do you have anything?
Yeah, this is like a really classically complicated, excuse me, set of considerations. The aspect of lighting can be controlled mechanically. We could put a requirement in that there's a step dimmer that's on a timer, that it's, in the evening it could be very bright, but in the morning it can't be very bright. If they want to have a bright light coming out of the storefront to let people know it's active. I mean, there are mechanical ways to get around this. Respecting the fact that it's a stressed neighborhood, we constantly run into the problem of enforcement versus taking an action for somebody's reasonable benefit. This happened over on that property on Cedar Street. It's very many cases come here where, no, you can't do anything because somebody else has been bad. To that extent, at one point I suggested, and I'll say it again just because we need to keep thinking about this, that this body has the capacity to be a conduit for people who have been aggrieved or somewhat dissatisfied with the system, so that an appropriate enforcement agency can go and enforce this stuff. But to have somebody come in and say, well, basically, I'm being a jerk, and John's saying you can't do something because I'm being a jerk. What did you do? Right? I mean, you didn't do anything. I'm the one being the jerk. But John says, no, you can't do that because I'm sitting next to this jerk all the time, and no, we can't have this anymore. And it becomes an enforcement problem, not a land use issue. So from the standpoint, if we had an avenue to communicate an enforcement requirement, that would be beneficial to the neighborhood. In terms of parking, this is something that I whine about a lot, that I don't think we have a realistic, a function-based parking standard. We have parking ratios and parking standards that are based on a variety of things that were done at different points in time that don't necessarily reflect the actual use of the site. Personally, from driving by there every day, twice a day, 3 times a day sometimes, I have not seen that intensity on this particular parcel. Yes, in the springtime, if I go to stop at Shelley's, my wife goes to stop at Shelley's, I'll hear about it. But on this particular site, I have not seen that need for parking. It is not a destination. And the fact of the convenience store, really, if you're going to sell gas, you need to have somebody to basically man the cash register. There's no mechanic I've ever known in my entire lifetime that said, boy, I really like to stop what I'm doing to go sell gas. So to the extent that guys can sell gas, independently of being a mechanic, that's how you end up with convenience stores. Not like every garage never had, a box of candy bars and a soda machine. This is just a little bit of an expansion of that. Again, it is not a destination merchandising event. It is totally incidental to the use. The only part that troubles me about this whole thing is this kind of relief goes with the land. So I would want the conditions to be written so with such a strict limitation has such confined boundaries that a future owner can't use any parking relief that we grant for this particular situation to be used inappropriately.
Okay. Okay.
But basically, I do not find any reason why, if we put the proper controls in place, I think this is a legitimate thing to have happen.
Okay. Yeah. I think fair points. Fred, do you have any?
Well, the one thing I want to disagree with Joe with is that if you took the price of gasoline at that particular station, dropped it 20 cents a gallon, you'd see a lot more activity there. There's a little tiny station that's there, and the pumps are always busy. And it's you talk about a tight spot. That spot's much tighter than what we're talking about. So I think that the lack of activity is not because people don't buy gas there. People don't buy gas when it's 25, 30 cents a gallon more. You change that dynamic, and what you're saying isn't true anymore.
But again, it's not a destination, and given the number of places to buy gas between Route 1 and the center of town.
There's three of them within a half a mile.
Yeah, there's 3 gas stations.
In a half a mile.
Yeah.
So it's not, you can't make a claim that there's a need for another gas station.
No, but it is there. I mean, it's not like I feel we have the jurisdiction to say, well, we don't need this. Somebody feels there's a commercial need for it. I am not smart enough to know whether or not there is or isn't a commercial need for it. But the degree to which it will incite activity that will be, bad for the neighborhood. I mean, I can't see that happen given the volume of activity that's...
We had people who came out and said it would be bad for the neighborhood. They live there.
Yeah.
That's who we're listening to. And I think, we have a unit that has no rental in it, and whether that's 1 car or 2 cars, I think you have a high price of gas, which will lowering your price list. I think if the applicant came in and said, I want to put a convenience store in there, or I want to make it a full thing without the pumps, I would be more inclined to say, I don't have a problem with that. But you can't have lower gas prices, which is going to bring more traffic in, have a convenience store, which is going to bring traffic in, have a liquor store that, in its own way will bring traffic in, and a rent that is now vacant is going to bring traffic in, and say that the parking isn't going to be affected. It's just, you just can't have all those things in one place, and especially with the fact that there's 2 other places on both ends of the street there that are in direct competition. That I just don't, I can't see almost the need to have that there, to put the neighborhood through more stress that it already has. This would just increase it. Wouldn't make it go away.
Good discussion. I think they're all fair points. I think there will be more traffic. I think with you add a convenience and a lower gas price, you're going to get more stuff there. One of my concerns about, I am typically on your side of, it's not my job to second guess to see, what the market is, whatever. People want to put their investment. I back off a little bit of that when we're in the town center, because this is now, we're in a village district, guys. I mean, we have a lot more discretion, and that's part of the expectation. I think that when you buy a property that is part of the town center, you sort of buy into a little bit more scrutiny and regulation. So I have less, but if it's from Route 1, you do what you want. I don't. So I am kind of cognizant of that. I am kind of cognizant of, it's probably less than a half a mile where would be the 3rd gas station, gas station convenience store or low price gas. So, but part of me also says, hey, who am I to second guess? And you know, the other things might be able to be corrected, so. But I get, but it's of all the worst locations, because it is this corner, and there's a lot of stuff going on. It's right near a residential neighborhood. Have a little concern about it opening at 5 a.m., you know, because, and that in itself, bringing traffic in and with having some lights and whatever, and there's condos right there and whatever, that seems maybe a little, another element.
7 days a week.
Yeah. So you know, there we go. So maybe we should get a fifth person. But it can only be one of you. Fred's in, so that means it can only be Marcy or Joe. It can't be both of you because Fred is now voted. We already.
How to say, can we give comments tonight, or do we have to?
Well,
listen to the
I
tape
think
first?
someone should listen to it. We should do it right, and we probably should listen to tape, and we can continue the discussion. I think. I mean, we could be, because I don't want to have to, because I'm reading, because I haven't said where I'm coming. It's 2-1 against, but if I for, it's 2-2, but if I against, it's 3-1. But to me, if you're that close, we should have all five, because, you know, I think the applicant deserves that. So, one of you guys, because I think, I don't know who it is, and can we flip it? How do we decide that?
You can flip a coin. If I have a coin.
You said he did, he goes like this.
Okay, well, so
As long as I can
agree.
deliberate next week.
Yeah, you can deliberate next week, just look at you can go online and look at it, so, whatever.
I mean, I've heard, how much?
probably-
It's a few
was it-
minutes of testimony on the 23rd.
Yeah, there was
I think
Well,
Michelle
I'm just
queued
saying
up
I've heard
for-
a lot of it, and I've been,
It's
I've
probably
been
not
thinking
anything
quite a bit.
you don't know, but we want to be right.
it's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one, and listen to that.
That's all
and
I'm
we'll-
gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a couple of neighbors that spoke at that meeting, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me hear what the
Yeah.
news is.
Yeah.
The reason why I pointed out is because I don't want to have a conflict. I don't have a conflict, but when it's controversial like this, there's a conflict possible, could be mentioned with Shelley's next door.
I understand.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'm
That's
happy.
why-
Yeah, no, that's a good,
It's
that's a great out.
It's not a great, it's not an out. It's not an out, but I just don't want somebody to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, you want to avoid the appearance of impropriety. Absolutely,
Right.
good
Well,
call.
that's very true. I mean, I don't mind making a decision. If that's what you want, that's fine, I'll do it. But
Yeah, no.
A disclosure is, that's the possibility that somebody could say something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's a good point. You're on, so, okay, so.
Well, I have to listen to the tape.
Yeah,
so I'm not
after you
saying
listen to the tape, so we'll keep it up again.
Table
and
it to the 5th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that one. Now, the next one, where we get to.
That I'll talk.
This is Vigliotti. This is items
2, 3, 4,
5,
6,
6
7, 8.
through 8. And we had a discussion. We started our discussion last time, and there was a number of concerns.
See you, Rex?
Sure. About that one in particular. Again, this is the Cosgrove 15-lot subdivision, and I think we had some discussion. Marcy brought up some points. My suggestion was go take a look at the site and come back and we talk, because I think, and that was helpful for me too, and I had some thoughts and ideas on that as well now. So, who's voting on that one? Who are the members? I know you are, and I am.
Let's see, so we have,
Is it the regular 5, or is it?
I've got Fred, Chuck, Marcy, Joe, and Joe.
Okay, so John is out, yeah.
Right, because you,
I listened to the tape.
Yeah, so we can, if you want.
if you listen
Yeah,
to it.
but we already started with Fred.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we started our deliberations, so I
Alrighty.
think that
Okay.
Fred should stay in since he started.
Okay.
So and you don't switch jurors in midstream or something. I just, whatever. So,
Unless there's tampering,
what?
unless there's jury tampering.
Yeah, or whatever. So, yeah, but thanks for
That's my
listening.
bad
Okay.
humor.
Okay, so, who wants to start? I mean, I don't mind, or you can?
Can I just read one section?
Sure,
That's-
absolutely.
7.3, open space residential development, you know, I think we need to consider our regs against a 30-acre parcel where they're using the regs about flag lots and compare it against the reg open space. It says the commission may approve special exceptions to permit establishment of an open space residential development involving modification of lot area, so they can be smaller than the zone, shape and setback requirements, if it finds that the special exception will accomplish one or more of the following purposes. Permit tracts of considerable size, and I consider 30 acres to be considerable size, to be designed and developed for single-family residential and similar purposes in such a manner as to accomplish one or more of the following open space purposes. To preserve land as unsubdivided and undeveloped open space, which preserves or enhances the appearance, character, and natural beauty of the area, which I think was the intent that they've already put forward, so I commend them on that. To preserve land for park or recreation, to preserve land for purpose of conserving natural resources, to preserve and protect particular areas of terrain having qualities of natural beauty or historic interest, to protect stream, rivers, ponds, so as to avoid flooding, erosion, and water pollution. So I'm in favor of a development. I would love to see a development for the property. I just think that these lots, these rear lots, aren't the way to go, and that there needs to be other considerations as far as using that section where maybe you're doing smaller lots and give them more lots, you know, if you can protect the features that need to be protected so that they can afford to put the roadways in. I mean, it's too big of a tract to, and too beautiful of a tract, quite honestly, to sort of partition it willy-nilly, you know. And that's my biggest issue.
Okay. My thoughts were a couple-fold. One is, what are the concerns, what are the problems with the proposal that we would want to do something else? That's kind of how I'm looking at it. What are the, you know, are there alternatives that are better than what is this, or are there safety problems with this one? We should be looking at that.
So I would like to see what they could do as of right. And then typically you would look at, those rear lots are shown as, a rear lot you have 1.5 times the size. So now you're putting more area in those rear lots in potential areas that could be sensitive, and not examining the possibility of doing, you know, a simple street or a simple something with a smaller lot that could potentially protect those areas, or, in my opinion, give a project much more marketability, much more profitability to the developer. I mean, I in no way want to burden the developer to develop a road or whatever, but I think that, you know, the flag lot regulation was written for the sort of oddball case where you've got a little extra land and you want to do one flag lot or maybe a second, you know, because you can't access the road. You've got 30 acres here. There's so much land to do a lot of things with, and, you know, and I'm thrilled that a lot of it's going to be donated as open space too.
Well, most of it's not usable. It's 30 acres, but you have to clarify it.
But the study, the work hasn't been done to show me that. I know intuitively that there's other solutions for this property that I'm not seeing, and I don't think that, I'm not convinced that approving 8 rear lots is for special exception is the way to use this parcel in its best light.
I have to agree with you on that, because the ratio, you can see a terrific amount of work had gone into that subdivision to make it conform to a regulation. I mean, it was like really tortured lots. And the amount of circulation that was put into each one of those flag lots to get them out to the street, if you would have had, if you weren't trying to comply with the regulation and had some sort of internal circulation system or internal collector system, you'd have had a far safer way to get out on the road and had more buildable land that you could use. rather than have it devoted to driveway.
1.5 times
And
of the lot.
that was
yeah,
just,
area.
that was just sort of like, looking at it, it was like, wow, there's a missed opportunity here because of an attempt to comply with regulations.
I think they're complying with the wrong regulation
Yeah.
for this property. That's all. I think there's better choices to apply to us under.
I will present a little bit of a counterpoint. One of the concerns, one of the reasons I think people were concerned was that you shouldn't have driveways on the street, on Parish Farms and Todd's Hill, because people go too fast and there's a problem with having curb cuts and so forth. I think there was a little bit of that said. And so some of the rear lots were like additional curb cuts or whatever. I disagree with that after going up and looking at the site for a number of reasons. I think that, number one, the road, you know, it's even in the part that we have, there's all sorts of, Cosgrove property is a huge property. But once you're out of there, there's individual houses on the street, on both Parish Farms and Todd's Hill. So the roads themselves, I think, are appropriate to have driveways just go out onto Parish Hill and Todd's Hill. This is not an arterial road. This is a small road. There are far more trafficked roads in our town that have curb cuts on them. So like if I go down on Harbor Street or Indian Neck, those are all roads where there's individual driveways. And if you are concerned about traffic speed, then frankly, having more houses with curb cuts on the road will slow it down, I think. I think it is almost a traffic calming when you have a house that exits right onto the road. That you're more likely to go slower in that situation than if there's just a blank road right there. So, because that was one of the issues I thought the concern was. So, looking at that, I don't have any problem with having a curb cut, and if it's a rear lot or a regular lot, go on that road, and I think it's appropriate. The other thing that...
Well, you have curb cuts that are closer because of the 25. You know, if you have a lot that's, I think it's 100, and then 25, so the number of cuts is increased because of the flag lot in some regards.
Yeah, there is, but I don't think for this particular road that's a problem.
Even in here?
I do think it's here, and they took them out.
This must be an old plan. Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And there, you know, there's a need for a stop sign. You put a stop sign there, so that's fine. The other thing I'm a little concerned about is that this is not an open space subdivision, but in a lot of ways it is functionally an open space subdivision, in the sense that it's 37 acres and like 25 acres are going to open space. And the way you do it, so now, could you get that through an open space subdivision? Maybe you could. But it would have smaller lots. These have larger lots. You know, is neighborhood appropriate for smaller lots? I don't know. This is, in some ways, it is a functional open space subdivision because there's a huge chunk of land, close to 25 acres, what is it, 66% of the entire acreage. Granted, it's wetlands, there's development restrictions, it's going to the water company. And my concern is that even in an alternative development, maybe not in an open space, that you would be less, that you couldn't get as much open space. So that's a good thing. A thing I liked about the design was that, again, the open space component of it. So if the curb cut isn't an issue, the open space isn't an issue, then you know, what are the issues? Well, the issues are the flag lots, the interior lots, and that's a matter of our discretion. You know, in some ways, I'm happy. I think the town is happy not to have another road to maintain. In some ways, you know,
How do we know that? Did the town issue a comment?
I'm just thinking that it's less plowing, less maintenance, less everything else. But I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that
we're hearing
you know,
that from the applicant. We're not hearing that from the a town body
I-
or a proclamation from the RTM that's saying, you know, to us to minimize approving new roads because we're, you know,
I'm just
too much
thinking that.
maintenance to do.
No, there's an incremental cost whenever you approve a new road. Because the town would actually own the road eventually. Under our subdivision regulations, they own it, and they would have to repave it, you know, after so many, whatever. I don't know how much it is or whatever, but I don't question that. Maybe it's not a lot, maybe it's not that big a factor, but it is something. So this is a way of making it, privatizing that so that the town doesn't have to eat that expense. So that is fine, but I don't know if it's determinative. My reservation is that I don't know what that alternative design would look like.
Well-
That's what I don't know. This may be the best design, because or it could be a good design, even though it does have interior lots.
But if you go to the open space plan, you've got, you know, a lot of times you do that when you have city water and city sewer. You can afford, it affords the use of smaller lots. So you could come in and say, okay, we're gonna front smaller lots all along here, and you might, with a slightly smaller footprint, you know, maybe you go to, I mean, there's lots in other areas that are on tenths of an acre, you can get a good-sized house. You could do a smaller footprint and maybe get that same number along the road and protect even more land. You know, my issue is you've got so much land, and that rear lot regulation asks for 1.5 times the size of the lot.
Right.
You know, I mean, you've made a good conversation about the curb cuts, and, you know, those flags give you more curb cuts, but, you know, if you make them smaller along the road, now you've got less pipe that you're taking out to the rear lane. I mean, it's better for the conservation of the land, I would venture. You know, but that regulation doesn't dictate that you can't do a flag lot or one. It says that you can control the size of the lot, and I just think that I want to see more, you know, maybe more along the street, that because those flags, you know, with this sewer, you know, you're putting the whole sewer line in, and you're not even going to connect the, you know, the driveways. It's essentially a road anyway in that one section.
What are the objections to flag lots?
I don't have an objection to flag lights in some situations. I have an objection to using flag lights as a tool to develop a huge piece of property without looking at other considerations, like the availability of gas and sewer. And, you know, it's like they're presenting, let's do flag lots because we don't want to add road. You know, people don't want to add road because it costs money to add road. It's expensive to the developer. I understand that. That's why I'm trying to suggest something to the developer to get some additional lots to offset the cost of the road, because I think ultimately a piece of road, some smaller lots, is going to be a far better design and far better product for the developer to make money for him, and to also at the same time protect the environmental resources out there. So I'm not saying to go to a different method to overbuild the site. You know, I think it all has to work together in concert, and I don't think these 8 flag lots do it, based on my experience. That's
No, and I think that's a fair point. And where I'm running up is I don't know what the alternative design would look like, and I mean, you could say, let's do an open space subdivision and we'll cut the lots in half, and then but if they're on the street, is that going to be appropriate in this zone? Do we want to have
well, if you cut the size of the lots in half,
it's
and
an
you get
R4 zone.
16 lots along the street, and they only come in with 16 lots, and you don't have to build any road, now you've protected all that space behind the land, and you've protected even more land. And you've got shorter distances for the sewers to the houses because they're on smaller lots. It's a more affordable project for the, I mean, there's one solution.
No.
Another solution is to do a small cul-de-sac and do small, and maybe put 12 houses on that, and then do small lots and protect, you know. I mean, I'm not here to redesign the project. I just know intuitively there's other things that can be examined, and I don't want to not examine them by approving 8 lots.
I think that's.
Because I'm not against the project.
That's
my
and you're
thing.
not against developing and having a subdivision with that density.
Right.
I understand that. And the thing I'm running against is I haven't seen the alternative. I don't necessarily object to this, and this may be preferable to a smaller lot or an open space subdivision. I think this is functionally an open space subdivision, because I don't see you getting much more open space than an open space subdivision. And in some ways, having rear lots is okay, and because they are bigger lots. And the neighborhood may not like it if all of a sudden they have a bunch of R4 houses and then you got a bunch of small houses next to that right across the street. I don't know.
No, they're smaller lots. It doesn't say
Smaller
you're not.
lots, right.
That's not saying you're not building a 2,000 square foot colonial on those houses. I don't
yeah.
know what size they're planning to build, but, you know.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
You guys are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We're not here to design this project. We have a project in front of us. There's nothing illegal about it. It meets the regulations. And it's not our business to tell them if you should build 16 houses, what the lot sizes are. That's what we're supposed to vote on. That's what we talked about. I think we should have a discussion, or at least bring it to a vote. I think you guys are going back and forth, and nothing's going to get accomplished. Either you like it or you don't like it. It's just that simple. If you don't like it, vote against it. If you like it, vote for it.
It's a fair point. What do the regulations require? We can actually, that's probably a good thing to talk about.
Do you like that?
The regulation doesn't design how big the property, doesn't assign size of property and the use of flag lots. And that's what I would like to see change in the regulations.
No, the regulation says, the regulation that we're looking at is not the open space one.
I understand.
It's the regulation
For flag lots.
And what the regulation says is that, it's a special exception. We can look if it's consistent with the character of the neighborhood, like all the general special exception criteria. So if we find that it's inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood and so forth, we have permission to deny it. We denied the one across the middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't find it was consistent with the character of the neighborhood.
Well,
So that's why I'm having this conversation, because I'm figuring we have a little discretion here to look at that. So
So I don't think that I know of on Avon in that whole neighborhood, on the new Cosgrove Court in that neighborhood, on Parish Farm Roads, or down, that I can even think of a flag lot in there, and I would,
Yeah.
and now we're proposing a neighborhood of 8 flag lots, so, why does this property, what is it about the land that says that has to be a flag lot?
No, it doesn't.
Land can be anything. You can propose anything on the land.
That's true.
It's not for us to decide,
We just proved some on Leeds Island Road too, and I don't know if there's any in Leeds Island Road, but I don't know. What other, we're talking, so someone else.
Well, there's a lot of flag lots on Leeds Island Road. There's about 5 or 6 other developments of flag lots, and it's all because of the way Leeds Island Road comes in and the terrain of the land, that you can't get access to put any other roads in those areas. And there's 3 or 4 developments that are all flag lots, and it's a way for them to get into the land, and they're coming in, well, they're long, narrow lots, or they're, it's not the same character as what's evolved in this area.
Great. So you guys, we've been chatting away.
I know, I'm very passionate about this for some reason. I don't know why I'm so out of it, but
For me, I think you gotta vote on what you're seeing, what's proposed. I mean,
correct.
We don't have the right to say, well, we don't like what's proposed. We think, we can say, I think Marcy's right. I think there's a good possibility of making it a nicer situation with a cul-de-sac, or an upside down U. It starts at, that's Todd's Hill, I don't know. Todd's Hill goes into Parish Farm, going up. I don't know about the topography of there. It's pretty hilly and pretty slopey, so you have to really do, and I don't know about the wetlands and all that, but a redesign and see what they could put in as a loop of house from one to another, like upside down L or cul-de-sac or something. It'd be nice to have a road without all those
I just think
driveways in one spot.
oversized rear lots.
At the same time, do we have the right to do that? I mean, we got to vote for what we see, what's there.
Well, that's what the special permit criteria is for. We would not have a right if they had not proposed rear lots. I think they could do it as a matter of right. but
That's what I'm
since
thinking.
the rear lots, that, that's a discretionary matter, it's a special exception.
I mean,
So, there you
I
go.
looked at it. Now, there's a fence there. Now, is that where the line is, or is that fence, some of that fence has got to go? That page fence, is that part of that property that's being under, where the houses go? Because that fence goes pretty far.
I mean, down,
In front of
Cherry Hill?
Yeah,
Parish
there's a
Farm.
fence, I forget what the answer was, someone asked
Todd
that, but I don't know what the answer
I
was.
think it just lines the
I
property.
mean, where these 8 houses are proposed is beyond the fence, the open land where there's no fence? Or some of that fence needs to be
I think coming down.
removed?
I think coming down.
You know what I'm
Said.
saying? There's a lot of open space where that fence, sort of makes the turn and goes towards the back.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is open. Most of the open space abuts against the
And
rear of the property.
I mean, I drove through there tonight to look and see, because we were talking about sidewalks too.
Right.
Now,
Yeah, no, I mean, that was,
the sidewalks.
that was the other thing, the
and that
school,
was-
Murphy School is walkable, I was saying, maybe this is good,
No,
but
if
maybe
you,
it needs that.
to me, the sidewalks possibly could be put on, I guess it's Todd Hill Road, I'm not sure what's in
Yeah,
front of it.
it
Is that Todd
abuts
Hill or is
both.
that Marsh?
Parish Farms. and
Parish
Foxwoods,
Farms.
Yeah,
I don't know, whatever it is, whatever in front of wherever the fence is.
Yeah.
That fence is pretty close to the curb. There's not room for a sidewalk without taking the fence down.
Well, I think the
removing
fence
the
would have to
fence.
come down as part of the project.
That's,
They had to adjust their plans because they had to give more land to the town because of the
right-of-way
right-of-way
was too narrow.
insufficient, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the right-of-way is just a bit too narrow, so the plans have been adjusted to widen the right-of-way out where needed.
what right away? Where are we talking?
The right-of-way of Todd Hill Road.
Todd Hill Road.
Yeah, just a little piece of it,
Yeah,
I think,
so
near
that-
the intersection with Parish
So
Farm.
that road there has been widened already a little bit.
Right, but just the actual property owned by the town as part of the road would be.
Yeah, I know it's part of the road,
yeah.
but it made the fence closer, the fence
Right.
and the curb
It's
are
right.
closer together.
Right.
So, to me, sidewalks would be not doable to
Yeah,
me.
I don't see
And
any need
there's
for
no sidewalks
sidewalks.
anywhere in that whole neighborhood,
Right.
what I saw.
No, there aren't. There are no sidewalks there.
So that's-
I just realized there's the back entrance to Murphy right down the road.
I know.
Yeah,
So, I mean, if that was an issue, that I would not be in favor of putting sidewalks there.
Yeah.
So that has nothing to do with what we were just talking
Right,
about,
right.
the houses, but,
Really, we're only deciding whether there should be 8 rear lots here.
yeah.
That's the special
And why,
exception,
I mean, why should there be a special exception for it? Why should there be? Because they haven't presented anything else? That seems like
Yeah,
a
but the
weak.
original plan before they made was with curb cuts on all 8 houses, right? Wasn't it? And then they
No,
they
it
turned
was,
around-
they just moved
They
the
changed
flag
it.
lot arrangement to get away from Parish Farms Road, which helped the
Right.
traffic
Well,
situation.
they added common driveways to
But it
eliminate direct
changed.
driveways into Parish Farm.
Yeah, they just directed more up where that sewer is, because I was questioning if you've got the
So
easement
most
right
of
of
the
way anyway, why
driveways
not
are
just put a
down
road
below
there?
On
Right.
Todd's Hill now.
So now they're all on Todd's Hill, right?
Yeah. Which is not a bad thing when you look at, it rises pretty high up there, Parish Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around, once you make the bend going up towards Cedar Street, rises pretty high up there. I'm inclined to vote the way I see it, and for it the way I see it.
Oh, to
Really?
vote to approve?
Approve it, yeah.
Okay.
I would like to see, it would be nice if they would come back to us and say, give us an alternative plan,
Yeah.
that would be nice as well.
Well, if we deny it, it forces them to,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
you
because,
gotta have a hell of a
they're
good
gonna wanna
reason to
develop
not
more
deny it.
than 7 lots on the site, you know. And I've thrown out 3 ideas, so I'm not, like I said, I'm not opposed to the density. I'm opposed to the configuration and, I don't think we need huge lots necessarily. I don't think that's the way the market's going for, I think you can do more to protect the environment by denying those lots.
Well, I suppose we could well, what do I, who's voting? I'm voting, you're voting? No.
Take a straw poll, I guess.
Yes.
Well,
He's on the fence. I always have him.
it's not a firm yes, it's a yes.
Yeah, okay.
With hoping that would be nice to get a plan, alternative plan with a possibly.
We could request the applicant to
Draw it and resubmit.
withdraw it, show us some alternatives, because this may be a good plan. I mean, for all the reasons I've said, I don't mind the curb cuts. I like the open space. You know, and I don't know if you're going to get as much. And I don't mind too much interior lots, although if I were going against it, I'd say exactly.
I mean,
No, I'd say
yeah.
exactly the same thing you're saying, if I were looking to oppose it. You're right.
If they're one or two, fine.
There's
but
a
it's
lot of
the-
interior lots, you're
The whole
absolutely right.
concept is created based on.
How many
interior
curb
lots.
cuts is going to be? One, and then it's going to branch two curb
So
cuts?
you've
I'm trying to
got
remember the.
Two normal lots, you still get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
No, I'm talking about
14.
where the 8 are.
There's,
The other ones are not an issue to me.
but you're still gonna have a cut, you're just gonna have,
Different areas.
you know, if you
Of the
start
property.
grouping the flags, you have 2 or 3 flags, you're gonna have driveway, 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 so you're gonna have a grouping of curb cuts, which is, in my mind, a definition of a street, you know?
Yeah,
You know, if
but-
you're putting 4 driveways right next to each
Yeah,
other,
I
put a
mean,
street in.
well, I mean, maybe.
And then if you can go with another concept and get an extra 2 lots out of it to pay for the street, you know, make them a little smaller, I think
But
that's a home run.
and I'm still bet, why is the street any better than a interior lot? I don't know if it is, and in some ways it
I'd have to
isn't.
go into the,
And how do you justify the cost? I mean, you're just saying it is, but you have no idea what the costs are for
oh, I
it.
absolutely know what the cost is, I do it all day long. I know what it costs to build a street,
You do?
yes. It costs $200 to build a parking space, $200 a square foot to build a parking space. You have to do the base, you're digging anyway for the sewer, you're digging anyway for the water to bring up those flag lots. If you've got 8 rear lots that are bigger, think about just logically, you've got to trench further to bring in the water and the sewer. If you do smaller lots that are closer to the street, whether you put in a new street or not, now you don't have to take and trench as far to get the utilities to those same lots. And if the lots are big enough to fit a 3,000 square foot, colonial, you can put as big a house as you want, as long as you have the, it's just like going to a slightly smaller zone for the benefit of protecting the space. It's actually more economical in some ways to the developer to do that.
So you're saying that the developer hasn't thought that through?
I don't know what the developers thought through or not. All I can do is take my experience and look at what's in front of me and ask myself, why do you go to a flag lot? Under what conditions would you go to a flag lot? If I had 30 acres to work with, my first solution would not be to go to a flag lot scenario. If it's, a question of grade like on Leeds Island Road, or there's nothing, this is bordered by 3 streets providing access. You could just do lots along the street and do smaller lots. And maybe do 1 rear lot, and have 2 rear lots and smaller lots, and probably save more wetlands and reduce the length of utility cuts and have no streets. I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to design and saying that you have to have a street. I'm just saying that 8 out of 15, if I've got the numbers right, of them being flag lots is too many. It's like, we can do better. And we shouldn't just give away our power, especially when I think that there's solutions that are equally and mutually beneficial to the developer and his bottom line, and beneficial to the environment. Because that's what I'm always looking to do, is to, balance protecting the environment with, and if you get a few more houses by doing that, that's going to help the tax revenue. The tax base.
It's actually 6 lots that are rear lots.
What's that?
There's only 6 rear lots proposed.
All right, so All right, all right, so I miscounted, 1, 2,
No, I just
3,
wanted-
4, 5, 6, thank you. Out of 1, 2, 7, 8.
What? What do we do?
You gotta do something here.
Okay, what are our options here? Joe, do you have any thoughts?
Honestly, I agree with everything Marcy's saying. I am shrugging my shoulders, though, and saying, yes, this is an inelegant situation, but I'm not sure what I'm still not sure what our jurisdiction is as far as denying it.
It's just the fact that it's rear lots and special exceptions, that's it. And you could say that.
It's the sort of thing that you would hope a light bulb would go on somewhere, and somebody would say, yeah, maybe we should try something else. But this is in front of us, and this is, you know.
I would almost like to reopen the public hearing and have the applicant address this. And I wish we could rescind our, and I've done this, rescind our motion to close the public hearing, reopen the public hearing, and then ask the applicant to address these issues to see what they have to say. I don't know if we're too late in the process to do that, but because part of the issue I have is a fairness issue. It's almost like you mentioned a few things during the public hearing, to be fair to you, but I don't think the applicant really had noticed that this was a real issue. We didn't really tell them this. So I
have no issue. I would love to hear from the applicant
Yeah.
and see what they're willing to.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not making my comments to burden the applicant in any way.
No, but to me, it's kind of a fairness thing, because I think this is, if I were the applicant, I'd be a little surprised. I know you said a couple things.
Right.
No one else did, and it wasn't as strong. You know,
I
as you're saying
have no
now.
issue with you opening it up.
So-
Like I said, I want to get
So
to
that's
a solution.
Pulling something out of the hat, that's what I do. So I don't know if it's legally, let's ask the lawyer.
Aren't you the lawyer?
Yes, I am. The issue is that I've done it, I've seen it done before, where you rescind the closing of a public hearing and you open it up, and maybe we can, there's time extensions and things like that we're dealing with, and I don't know where we are in that.
Well, you close the public hearing, so 65 days after the close of the hearing, which was 2 weeks ago. So we're 2 weeks, 14 days into the 65 days, and then the 65 additional days you could apply if they're willing to grant that time.
Right. What I would suggest, and I bet the applicant, hearing our good faith struggles, would grant us whatever extensions that we would request. So,
Okay.
So
I mean, you'd certainly want to do probably a legal advertisement in the paper with the same requirements as you did to open the hearing, I would imagine, and
Yeah. So do you
butters
wanna
notices
try
and
that?
everything else.
Okay. Then
That would legally have
what?
us be able to talk to the applicant after.
Yes.
Right now, we can't.
Right.
Yeah.
We close the public hearing. We can't talk to the applicant or the neighbors.
If we reopen the hearing, can we talk to them?
Yeah, but we can't. You
can't be the conduit for new information.
Right. So why
Can
don't
we
we
hear from them
why
tonight?
don't we do it above board? Someone make a motion to rescind the closing of the public hearing, to reopen the public hearing, starting at our next meeting, put a notice in the paper,
Okay.
and then,
Do you want to do courtesy notices to the abutters, or?
yeah,
Okay.
we should.
Can we hear from the applicant tonight if we reopen it?
I wouldn't do it
I wouldn't
tonight
do it
because there's no
tonight, just-
notice whatsoever.
Yeah, it's.
Oh,
yeah.
for the public? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you want to do that? Okay.
We would have to put an ad in the,
A problem is, a situation is that.
Just,
I think we have to put an ad in the New Haven Register rather than because we want to get in the sound
Yeah.
fast enough.
yeah, I don't even, yeah. So someone will make a motion to rescind the motion to close the public hearing and reopen the public hearing starting at our next meeting, which is when? March
5th.
March 5th. To allow the applicant to address some issues and also hear from any public concern. Are you're
Recused. So moved.
So moved by Marcy. So Marcy, yeah, we're, right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe. Any further discussion? All in
So that
favor?
was Marcy
Okay,
and
so-
Joe Chadwick.
So then we're going to reopen the public hearing. We're on the edge here, guys, but, it's something.
Okay.
Okay. That brings us then to item number 9, which is a special exception warehouse business. We have hearing for March 5th. Also for item number 10, also have a hearing on March 5th. That's a special exception for accessory structure. Item number 1 of new business.
Well, we got number 11, which you
Oh,
added
yeah.
on 711 Mill Plain Road.
Yeah, item 11, Mill Plain Road. Yeah, that's something that we started last time. Is the applicant here on that? Mr. Preddy, are you here on the Mill Plain? Yes. Okay.
Good evening. Jim Preddy, Priscola Engineering here in Brantford. We presented this last meeting, basically splitting this property into its separate uses, the existing multifamily house in the front, the office building on the corner, and the multifamily units in the back. Variances were granted to allow the density adjustment for the multifamily, three-family house in the front. It did go to wetlands for review, and they deemed that it did not need a permit, so we have a sign-off from them. We did receive some comments. Basically, no impact to coastal resources. Payment in lieu of open space will need to be addressed with the appraiser. Erosion controls truly are not needed here. The only activity on this property are some sidewalks. Requested sidewalks that are going to be installed along East Main Street, and a connection sidewalk for the building in the back. They have internally, they have other sidewalks already around those buildings. There was a request to increase the 4-foot wide sidewalk on the private property to 5 foot. We're willing to do that. I don't have any paperwork from DOT yet. I did have a conversation because of the bus stop that came up on West Main Street. There is actually a bus stop sign in front of here that will have to do the same thing here. Basically, they want us to connect the sidewalk to the curb. Incidentally, we did the same thing in Guilford, just on the corner of Moose Hill Road. It's not a flush condition. It's actually a sidewalk behind the curb because the bus will actually sit down on the curb. Other issues are mostly housekeeping issues related to the final Mylar for the subdivision. The only thing I'm questioning is it says any significant trees present on the property, if any, will be impacted by the construction of the sidewalk. I don't believe that's the case. Along the road, there are certainly no trees that will be impacted. If you look at the aerial, the canopy in this area is rather large, but if you go out to the site, this sidewalk is a straight shot to the building, and other than some shrubs at the building, I don't believe any trees will need to be removed for that. I've kind of shown on here where the cluster of trees exist now. There are street trees already going up this side. There's a very dense area here. There's a big tree here. There's quite a few large trees next to the house. But again, we're only digging down less than a foot for a sidewalk. And we're far enough away from the trunks here that if you stood out there, you'd see that the trees are not really an issue for the sidewalk. I believe that covers everything.
Thanks. Harry?
Sure, I think Mr. Purdy's gone over most of it already. Just highlight a couple of findings. So everyone should in their packet have gotten a memo dated February 12th, titled or referring to subdivision 711 Mill Plain Road. Everyone got that?
Yep.
Okay. So you have just a couple comments about the coastal management district, which weren't in the report from the consulting planner. So one of the staff recommendation, you got two findings: the coastal site plan finding, and that the use of a fee in lieu of, instead of the provision of open space, is found to be preferable in this subdivision. The conditions, you've got typical placement of soil and erosion controls prior to start of construction. And then number 2, a couple things that need to be added, or several things need to be added to the record subdivision map. Signature block, lot markers, the zoning data table, updated to reflect the variances. Number 2D, that would just be sort of if any will be impacted. So I think that covers the situation that there won't be any impacted if that seems to be in fact the case. So I think you could leave that the way it is. Planting of street trees, recognize that there are several things that could be considered as street trees probably out there already, so I don't know how many more would be needed. We certainly would consider what's out there as qualifying for, being counted as a street tree. F would require the completion of the whole process to determine the fee in lieu, which requires determining who would be the appraiser and all that's spelled out in the regulations. Again, you've got 90 days to file a plan, another 90-day extension, so there should be plenty of time to get some kind of evidence from, or submit the application to CONDOT before you actually get the Mylar signed. H2H is required by state law, so that just needs to be added to the plan. We talked about the sidewalk width, and then construction to town standards for the sidewalks along. And then K, go ahead.
I'm going to have to revise that J. The sidewalk actually needs to be constructed to the DOT standards because it's in there right away.
You're right. You're right. You could add a condition like the one that was adopted for the hotel if you want to, about the bus stop and the landing pad, which I can read out, or you can just rely on the state, which...
I've already had a conversation with the state. They're going to require it anyway, so...
So it's up to you. I mean, I can read the language out if you want, belt and suspenders.
Well, if they're going to require, why don't we put it in here? So,
okay.
You don't have any problem with it.
So it'd just be the same thing as the hotel.
Bus stop lighting area.
Yeah, exactly.
At the existing bus stop sign.
I can read it out. Creation of extension of the proposed sidewalk to create an accessible route to the curb and the addition of an accessible lighting or boarding area, 8 feet by 5 foot with detectable warning, meeting public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, PROAG, at the location of the bus stop, as may be directed by the town engineer and the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
So you're good with that, right?
Okay.
Are we specifying how many street trees to be added?
I'm sorry?
Are we specifying how many street trees should be added?
I think there are several out there, particularly along Mill Plain
I
Road.
see 3.
Three.
It's
So
not
they
on
were-
our drawing, so I
And
assume he added them.
If you look at the aerial photographs, there's actually 3 here. I missed, go to this. And then this is actually a tree line that goes all the way around this.
Around the
old cemetery here.
But how about on,
Over
East
here,
Main.
there is power lines over where the sidewalk's going.
Right.
And these buildings are rather close to the road. The only opportunity may be in here, but again, this canopy is quite large if you look at the aerial, so.
The other option allowed in the subregs is to put them actually on the lots with an easement, so if the overhead power lines are a problem,
yeah, you move them all, but I mean, street
Right.
trees don't have to be shade trees, they can be a smaller,
I have to look. I think the
Ornamental.
requirement is a shade tree, pretty sure. Subregs.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm just curious. The 2 lots that you split up, one on Mill Plain, the corner of Mill Plain and Route 1, and why is that little sliver there in between, instead of making it just 2 on Route 1? The big parcel, and then you got a sliver of property between the 2 ones that you cut up.
why are we creating frontage for that
Because
back
now you put a
property?
sidewalk there, now you got 3 people got to maintain the sidewalk instead of 2. And I'm just curious why that wasn't just a line and split them up and have 2 properties on Route 1.
No, this
instead of
sidewalk would belong to this property owner.
Oh, it's a subdivision?
I thought all that was one property, you're splitting 2.
This would be separated, see, there's 3
Yeah,
separate
that's
uses there
not a
really right now. That's why
Right,
this
uses.
whole thing is going.
So I would consider that like a
This is
medium tree. Yeah, I mean,
multifamily
there's.
house. This
Yeah,
is an
so that- I
office,
would
and
call-
this is that
Medium.
apartment
I
complex.
mean, there's plenty of trees. What did,
I believe they're trying to maintain frontage on
right.
Main
but
Street,
a lot
but
of
the
times
sidewalk would be
shade
solely
trees
on this
that are
piece. So
over one
the,
water lines.
the owner of the apartment complex would own that side.
our
But isn't that
regulation might
all
indicate
one
it.
property now?
But
You're
that's what
just
I'm saying,
splitting
so-
it up into 3 parcels?
Correct.
Maybe that's
But,
unclear.
so is there a reason why
Because the idea
you
is
have to have that little
vertical
parcel in the middle?
street. It may not
I'll be honest with
I
you,
just-
I wasn't in on the
I mean, just,
beginning of this. I kinda
there's a reason,
picked
I'm
this up
sure.
later, But yeah.
without
this
drawing a
is-
line and having it just
Now
the
you're
2
getting into vegetation.
parcels that you're splitting, just put them, merge them together as one.
They
And-
specifically wanted to do it this way. In fact, that's why they went to ZBA to get the variance for the density on that one piece, to allow that to happen that way. I
Because they
believe
want
that-
some kind of maintenance, for whatever reason, they want some kind of access to Route 1. How wide is that? About?
It's almost 100 feet, I think.
100 feet?
Does the,
Back up.
does the area of that back, I mean, it looks to me like you would just continue the line and create a new parcel there, you know, a little small parcel. But I don't know if it's
Here?
going to accomplish
No,
anything.
I don't know that there's any
Yeah.
indication of that at this point.
Well, they can't do that in the future because this is the cut, right?
Right.
So-
So that's approximately 100 feet wide,
Yes.
give or take?
90 anyway.
Yeah. Enough room to put a road.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, a road.
I
Possible
believe-
road if they need
I
it.
believe it just leaves flexibility for this in case they ever need access.
To add parking
I'm just
or-
saying, from Route 1, they can have an access and have a rear lot.
I think there's a road.
Oh, I know there's a Mill
right.
Plain Road there too.
Right.
But I appreciate the humor.
Okay, so what, was there questions about trees? Or was that resolved?
I think the regulations require what they require in the subdivision
35-foot
regulations,
height.
35-foot mature height. If that
Okay.
interferes with the overhead lines and moving back, I think, for paraphrase, Marcy's point, I believe, is try and keep something in terms of a row of vegetation, trees right along as close to the road as you can get them. So you got a line of shade trees defining.
So do we want any,
Public
I mean,
realm.
I just would try to
what do
put
you
a
want?
couple of trees on that 100-foot lot. So you don't
yeah,
put a road in
and
there.
Again, and that's what I said, I think that's really the only opportunity is there.
Maybe one on the one
I don't think you'd
parcel.
want them on the corner because of visibility of the intersection.
Right.
There's already
One,
trees here.
two,
Granted, they're
three.
small, but they're established.
I think you could get 4 smaller trees along that road,
Maybe, yeah, behind
Road.
the edge. You
East
agree.
Main Street.
So I'm looking at
Do
maybe
one,
3
I need your pen though, because my,
total, 1, 2, and 3.
we do
Probably,
1,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2, 3.
Okay,
Well, maybe not that one.
So in terms of.
3 and 1.
Yeah,
1, 2.
I think we can work with existing wording to come up with.
that's an E already, right?
That's in E already, yes. And then
Okay.
the changes would be in J, crossing out town, putting in DOT.
Right.
And then adding a K, which would be the words I already read out.
Okay, so E gives you the flexibility for the street trees already, so we don't have to change the language. So, anyone have any questions? Okay, good. This looks okay, looks like it complies with the regulations. Someone would make a motion to approve the application, coastal site plan, and the subdivision with the finding and the conditions in the February 12th memo from Harry with the change to J and the addition of K. about the bus stop. So moves, there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe, give it to Joe. Further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so
Thank you.
that's adopted. Okay, new business, Thimble Island, wants site plan food preparation. I understand we just want to accept and table this
Yes,
for now?
to the
Okay.
5th.
Okay, we'll table that one to the 5th.
Haven't you gone over before, I thought?
Do you want, you want to tell us?
Throw
You
his
can tell
hair.
us.
I think you
Sure.
told us though.
So this is an old gravy master site that Thimble Island Brewery is now operating in as part of that recent text amendment requires a site plan approval. So we updated the as-built. So at this point now, there's a question because they don't, some of the islands that were part of the original gravy master plan when they first went in there are no longer there. But this is how these folks moved into this property. So now we're at the point where he has enough parking to meet the regulations, but if he takes them out to add islands, he's no longer compliant with the parking regulation. and it exists this way now, and it's operating this way, so where does that leave us?
I think it leaves you as probably needing to get a variance. I don't know of any other way to do it, because what you're proposing, and let me go over a second. Arguably the best, there were 2 islands right about here. Back when the patio area was proposed with the food trucks, there was a sketch, not a version of the site plan, but a sketch that showed a parking layout similar to this, but it had those 2 islands deleted. This area, however, was still shown as landscaping on that sketch. So you're really talking about potentially considering those 2 islands as having been eliminated by the commission acting on an application that had a sketch in it that did not show the 2 islands. But this area, there's nothing documents that was ever parking outside of this plan, and the fact it's been on the property, I don't know how that happened. So I don't know how you would actually get that approved as parking spaces without a variance to allow the increase in impervious coverage, because it's already well over the 60%.
It's not a setback issue, right?
It's not a setback issue, it's really an impervious surface.
But are you proposing reducing the number of parking spaces even though the facility needs them because of coverage? Am I hearing that correctly?
No.
Those islands back, we would have to reduce some of the parking spaces, but at times it is an issue, because he has an agreement with the
Right.
storage,
Right.
sometimes use parking here.
And that was done, that was agreement for informally
remember.
to allow the patio, with the recognition that should that informal agreement disappear, the patio would have to disappear. I looked at various options of like permanent parking, additional parking. One was across the other side of Business Park Drive. I think there's discussion of
Right.
looking at property here that has the All Pets Club. And again, looking at that for some kind of formal designation of excess parking to be, but I don't know if there really is a lot there. I don't think the property was willing to encumber that property on a permanent basis, so.
It's the same, both lots are the same.
Weren't we-
But still, I mean,
But weren't we talking about like
It might be sold
an hours of use thing as well? That
it was talked
some
about.
of the hours were opposite use, so the
There's no real
spaces.
combination of different uses that would allow you to do shared parking, the way it's laid out in the regs.
Well, isn't that the sleep center? So they're there at night.
Yeah, we talked about it, and there was, we talked about trying to do combined access and do some physical changes, and none of that ever really panned out, as far as I know.
What would the variance be for?
The variance would allow
for the
increase in
coverage?
impervious coverage, then they could keep the 7 parking spaces.
To increase the coverage.
Increase the coverage, based on, hardship, you have to come.
And what does this have to do with the food application?
Well, because right now you got a site plan in front of you, I couldn't recommend you approve because it represents an increase in impervious surface coverage.
Yeah, but what's that have to do with the food preparation?
Because it requires site plan approval. Unless you can demonstrate.
So they
the
could
site's
do
in
the food
conformance with the
preparation
site
as of right with site plan approval?
Well, and also, if they had a site that was in conformance with their site plan, they could go ahead and get it with just a staff approval.
I
But right
understand
now,
that.
it's not in compliance, so they're
Okay.
coming in.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's just tough.
Yeah,
There's
like
property.
hoops.
There's a statute of limitations for some things. That's why I asked if it was a setback. If it's been there for 3 years and it has been corrected, then you're grandfathered, but I don't think coverage is.
Yeah.
And that's, no.
I understand that.
Yeah.
We're in a situation where like this whole business park basically looks like this. This has even less or more coverage.
Yep.
And they're all that right here. So
Well, wasn't it-
this guy moved into this building, now he's,
Yeah.
this is where we're at.
It's tricky, he's in a bad spot.
Wasn't Business Park designed at a time when the coverage was
75%. And some of them are well above 75%, but 75% I think was the limit until it went down to 60.
And now, because we've changed it to 60, they're required to conform every time they do a change?
No, they're all grandfathered, but a lot of times you've got someone who wants to increase it because they want to add parking or they want to add pads for whatever piece of equipment, and it gets tricky. You have to try to juggle, okay, let's look at this little corner pavement. Can you make that green so you can do your pad for your equipment? And it's
So you can still
tough.
function under 75% coverage, but you're saying now.
Well, it's increasing
plans
like, I don't know whatever it is, but it would be, let's say 70 or 80 to like 82 or 83 or whatever the numbers are.
To conform with what's there now.
to conform with what is on, right.
Versus what we have on the.
I thought that the problem is that the original approved site plan showed traffic islands or some, or greens, additional green.
Right.
And that the
That has been
sketch they
taken
gave us
away.
for something else didn't have that, even though that's the way it was when he moved in.
It had part of it.
It had
So
part- right.
the sketch arguably had those two islands right here weren't on the sketch, so arguably you might be able to make a case that the commission tacitly removed them.
Right.
And tacitly, even though it increased the surface area, it's admissible stoppable. The action happened, it was approved, but
Right.
there was never any sketch that I saw that showed the 7 spaces
Not being landscaped.
not being landscaped, right?
Okay.
I honestly can't remember when Grave Master was still open, what was here. That was a few years ago.
Okay.
So we could table it to the 5th. I could double check everything and see if there's anything that supports what they want to do.
Right.
So maybe something, I just haven't gone through everything. That maybe that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's operating there now. It's just
Sure.
trying to change something inside and
Right.
we're going through all this.
Yep,
Right.
I understand.
I mean, I did let him know when he applied for the regulation amendment, he'd have to deal with the site plan issues, and it's been going on for a little while, so it's not really anything new.
Okay. So we'll table this.
Thank you.
Yep. Other business.
Other business, the time extension request, the individual requesting that would like it tabled to the 5th because they're unavoidably detained tonight.
Okay, so we'll
And
table
given the
that.
late hour, I can give you a planner's report at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
We can adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. For discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Done.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.